Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the god of ninjas and shadows and got Harem of Fem-Kyuubi and Kushina. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Shadows Awakened. Blood splattered across ancient moss-covered stones as Naruto Uzumaki twisted midair, narrowly avoiding the poisoned kunai that would have pierced his jugular. The abandoned temple's crumbling, G-ceiling let shafts of moonlight pierce the gloom, illuminating dust particles disturbed by the deadly dance of shinobi. 3 Anbu-level rogue ninjas from Iwagakure circled him, their blank masks betraying nothing of the surprise they must have felt at his continued survival. Persistent little leaf, hissed the tallest attacker, voice distorted by an elaborate voice-changing jutsu. But even he's strongest branch breaks under enough pressure. Naruto's lips curled into a half-smile, azure eyes reflecting an unsettling calm that belied the gravity of his situation. The mission was supposed to be straightforward: deliver intelligence to Konoha's border outpost, return home. Simple. Until he'd stumbled upon this forgotten temple and the forbidden scroll these rogues were attempting to smuggle. You know what's fascinating about shadows? Naruto replied, fingers subtly forming half-seals behind his back. They're always there, even when you can't see them. Without warning, he slammed his palm against the stone floor. Not a traditional jutsu, something improvised, born of intuition and desperation. The temple shadows rippled unnaturally, momentarily disorienting his attackers. Just enough for Naruto to launch himself toward the nearest enemy, driving his kunai through a gap in the man's armor with surgical precision. One down. The remaining assassins abandoned stealth for speed, flooding the chamber with a barrage of earth jutsu. Stone spikes erupted from the ground as Naruto weaved through them with fluid grace, each movement economical and precise. This wasn't the hyper-active child who'd graduated from the academy. This was a seasoned jonin who'd earned his rank through blood and sacrifice. Doden. Ganbon Q. The earth-style user slammed both palms into the ground, causing stone slabs to shoot up around Naruto, threatening to crush him from all sides. Time seemed to slow as Naruto assessed his options, calculating trajectories and outcomes with battle-honed instinct. Standard shadow clones wouldn't work. Too little space, too predictable. Instead, he channeled chakra differently, feeling it respond to his need rather than his command. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he whispered. But the clones that formed weren't solid duplicates. They were darker, more fluid, shadow-given substance. They slipped through the narrowing gaps in the stone prison as it closed Ound the original Naruto with a sickening crunch. The earth user straightened, satisfaction evident in his posture. Told you. Just a leaf waiting to be. Blood bubbled from beneath his mask as 3 shadow clones materialized behind him, each driving kunai into vital points. The clones didn't disperse in puffs of smoke. They melted back into the darkness as if they'd never existed. The final assassin backed away, hands trembling as they formed desperate seals. What are you? Those weren't normal clones. From the pulverized stone prison, darkness leaked out like liquid night, coalescing into Naruto's unharmed form. He looked at his hands, momentary confusion crossing his features before his expression hardened again. Whatever had just happened, he could examine it later, after he survived. I'm just a shinobi doing his job, Naruto replied, advancing with predatory grace. Unfortunately for you, my job includes making sure that scroll returns to Konoha. The assassin unleashed a desperate fire technique, flames illuminating the ancient murals on the temple walls, carvings of a forgotten deity wielding shadows like weapons. The irony was lost on both combatants as Naruto sidestepped the flames and closed the distance. The battle ended with brutal efficiency. A lightning-fast exchange of blows, a flash of steel, and then silence. Naruto stood alone among the bodies, breathing heavily as adrenaline began to fade. Victory brought no satisfaction, only questions about what had happened with his shadow clones. Retrieving the scroll from the lead assassin's pouch, Naruto tucked it securely inside his flak jacket before examining the stone fragments from his collapsed prison. No shinobi should have survived that crushing force. Yet he'd escaped by turning himself into, what? Not shadow exactly, but something between solid and incorporeal. Pain lanced through his skull without warning, driving him to his knees. The temple seemed to shift around him, ancient murals blurring as his vision tunneled. Something was wrong, perhaps a delayed action poison or genjutsu he'd failed to detect. Have to get back, he muttered, stumbling toward the entrance. The moonlight outside seemed impossibly distant as darkness encroached from the edges of his vision. Each step became heavier than the last until finally, his legs gave way entirely. Naruto collapsed among the temple ruins, blood trickling from his nose as consciousness fled. His last thought was not of the mission or the scroll, but of the strange shadows that had answered his call. Dash dash dash, drip, drip, drip. The rhythmic sound of water penetrated the darkness of Naruto's unconsciousness. Awareness returned gradually, first sound, then sensation. Cold water seeped through his clothing, chilling him to the bone. The copper taste of blood lingered on his tongue. He opened his eyes expecting to see the temple ceiling. Instead, he found himself in a vast, flooded corridor lit by an ethereal blue glow. Pipes ran along the walls and ceiling, some leaking the source of the constant dripping. My mindscape, he whispered, recognition dawning. He had been here before, in dreams and moments of extreme duress, though never with such clarity or awareness. Rising to his feet, Naruto observed how the water, not quite water, but liquefied chakra, rippled outward from his movements, carrying strange patterns of light and shadow across its surface. The familiar path toward the sealed Nine Tails seemed different, darker, with branching corridors that hadn't existed in previous visits. I must be dying, he reasoned aloud, voice echoing in the cavernous space. Poison or internal bleeding, my consciousness retreating inward. Rather than fear, the realization brought a strange calm. If this was his mind's final refuge before death, he would face it with the same courage he'd shown in life. Following instinct, he moved not toward the Nine Tails' traditional chamber but down one of the new shadow-filled passages. The corridor widened into a vast chamber unlike anything he'd previously encountered within himself. The ceiling soared impossibly high, disappearing into darkness. At its center stood the familiar cage of the Nine Tails, but an ancient torii gate crafted from what appeared to be petrified shadow. Ceiling tags hung from weathered rope, their inscriptions in a language Naruto couldn't decipher. Beyond the gate, darkness shifted and swirled with purpose, not the malevolent chakra of the Nine Tails, but something older, more primordial. You've finally found your way here. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, feminine yet resonant with power. Though not under ideal circumstances. From the shadows emerged a figure that made Naruto's breath catch. A woman of otherworldly beauty approached the gate, tall and lithe, with flowing crimson hair that seemed to move like living flame. 9 elegant tails of the same fiery hue swayed behind her. Her eyes, slitted like a fox's, gleamed gold against the darkness. This was not the monstrous 9 tails he had glimpsed before. This was someone, altogether different. Kyuubi, he questioned, maintaining a cautious distance. Her laugh was like wind chimes in a storm. That's what humans call me, though it's not my name. I am Kurama, and I've been waiting for you to find this place for a very long time, Naruto Uzumaki. Or should I say, Kage no Kami. Quote, Shadow God. Naruto's brow furrowed. I don't understand. Why do you appear human? What is this place? And why am I not dead from that assassin's poison? Kurama circled the interior of the gate, tails trailing like afterimages. So many questions. First, this form is my true form, or closer to it than the bestial shape your kind has forced upon me for generations. As for why you're not dead, her expression grew serious. You are dying. The poison is shutting down your organs one by one. But death is a luxury you can no longer afford, Naruto. Not when you've finally begun to awaken. Naruto approached the gate carefully, studying the complex seal work. Awaken to what? To what you truly are. Kurama's eyes narrowed. Those shadow clones that saved you were no accident. The shadows responded to your blood, your need. They recognized their master after countless centuries. You're speaking in riddles, Naruto replied, frustration edging his voice. If I'm dying, I'd appreciate straight answers in my final moments. Kurama's expression softened unexpectedly. You're not just Naruto Uzumaki, child of prophecy and Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. You're the reincarnation of something far more ancient, the deity who created the very arts ninja now take for granted. The shadow god who taught humans to manipulate chakra, to blend with darkness, to move unseen. Naruto's first instinct was to laugh or dismiss her claims, but the recent battle flashed through his mind, the shadows responding to his will in ways that defied conventional ninjutsu. The strange murals in the temple depicting a figure commanding darkness. "That's impossible," he said, though doubt crept into his voice. "I'm just a shinobi. I wasn't even that special as a child, struggling at the academy. Barely passing exams. Because your divine essence was sealed away alongside me," Kurama replied, reaching through the bars to touch the seal on his stomach. Her fingers were warm against his skin. "Your father used the Reaper Death Seal not knowing he was binding two entities within you, myself and the dormant consciousness of the Shadow God. That temple you found was one of the last shrines to your former self. Your blood on those stones, combined with your desperation, cracked the barrier between your human consciousness and divine nature." Naruto stepped back, overwhelmed by implications too vast to process. "Even if what you're saying is true, which is a massive if, why tell me now? Why not before?" "Because you weren't ready before," Kurama answered simply. "And because I couldn't reach you. This chamber has been sealed since your birth. Only your awakening power could create a pathway for me to find you." Her expression darkened. "But we have no time for a gradual awakening. The poison in your system will kill your human form unless you embrace what you truly are." Naruto felt it then. The cold spread of toxin through his body, the labored beating of his heart. Even in this mindscape, his life was visibly fading, the blue glow around them dimming with each passing moment. "What do I need to do?" he asked, pragmatism overriding skepticism. Kurama placed both hands against the gate. "Accept me, not as the monster you've been told I am, but as your ally. In your past life, we were connected. Guardian deities who maintained balance. Allow me to help you remember. And the shadow will protect its master from this poison." Naruto approached the gate cautiously. "If you're lying, then you die either way," she finished for him. "But I am not lying, Naruto. Look within yourself. You've always sensed there was more to your affinity for shadow techniques than mere talent." It was true. From his earliest days mastering the shadow clone jutsu, he'd felt an unnatural ease with shadow-based techniques, as if the darkness recognized him, welcomed him. His recent promotion to Jonin had come after developing shadow techniques that even the Nara clan found innovative. Decision made, Naruto placed his hands against Kurama's through the bars of the gate. "How do we do this?" "Remove the seal," she instructed. "Not completely. We cannot fully merge yet without consequences, but enough to allow my chakra to flow freely into you and purge the poison." Naruto hesitated only briefly before reaching for the paper tag at the center of the gate. As his fingers touched it, visions flashed before his eyes, ancient forests where shadows danced at his command, temples raised in his honor, disciples learning the first ninjutsu from his teachings. Kurama beside him, not imprisoned but as an equal, her fire complementing his darkness. With a swift motion, he tore the tag halfway down its center. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Kurama's chakra, not the corrosive red energy he'd experienced before, but warm golden light interwoven with shadow, flowed through the gate and into him. It burned through his chakra network, seeking out and destroying the poison molecule by molecule. The mindscape shuddered around them as power older than the hidden villages themselves awakened within Naruto Uzumaki. Memories not his own, yet undeniably part of him, flickered through his consciousness, creating the first shadow clone. Teaching humans to walk on water. Battles against forgotten abominations. Kurama fighting at his side, their powers in perfect harmony. When the surge subsided, Naruto found himself on his knees, gasping. The poison was gone, but something fundamental had changed. The shadows in the chamber no longer seemed like absence of light. They felt alive, responsive, extensions of his own body. "What happens now?" he asked, voice rough with exertion. Kurama smiled, the expression transforming her from intimidating to strangely vulnerable. "Now you wake up and return to your village, carrying both the scroll and knowledge that will change everything. Your awakening has only begun, Naruto. The power will come gradually. Too much at once would overwhelm your human form. And you, will I be able to speak with you again? The pathway is open now," she confirmed. I am no longer just your prisoner but your guide to what you once were. What you will become again. She hesitated, an uncharacteristic uncertainty crossing her features. There are others who will sense your awakening. Some will seek to help you. Others to destroy you before you fully realize your power. Trust your instincts. They are older than you know. The mindscape began to fade as consciousness pulled at Naruto. The last thing he saw was Kurama's golden eyes watching him with an expression that mixed hope with something deeper, more complex, an emotion he couldn't name but somehow recognized from lifetimes past. Remember, Naruto Uzumaki. Her voice followed him toward wakefulness. You do not command the shadows. You are the shadow. Naruto awoke with a gasp, body jerking upright so violently he nearly struck his head on a low-hanging branch. Dawn light filtered through the forest canopy, birds calling to one another in the early morning hush. He was no longer in the temple but propped against a massive oak a mile away. With no memory of how he'd gotten there. The scroll was still secure in his vest. His wounds had closed, leaving not even scars to mark where kunai had pierced flesh. The lingering effects of poison, which should have killed him hours ago, had vanished completely. Was it real? He whispered, flexing his fingers experimentally. In response, his shadow rippled against the forest flow. Or, not following his movements as a normal shadow would, but moving independently like the surface of a disturbed pond. When it settled, it matched his posture perfectly once more. Real enough, he concluded, rising to his feet with fluid grace that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. The journey back to Konoha took half the expected time. Naruto moved through the forest with unconscious efficiency, his body responding to obstacles before his conscious mind registered them. Shadow techniques that would normally require hand seals and significant chakra came to him with mere thought, allowing him to pass through areas unseen even by Anbu sentries as he approached the village gates. Only at the final checkpoint did he allow himself to become visible again, materializing from the shadows of the massive gates and startling the Chunin on guard duty. Uzumaki-san. The younger guard nearly dropped his clipboard. We weren't expecting you back until tomorrow at earliest. Did you encounter any problems? Naruto offered a reassuring smile that didn't reach his eyes. Nothing I couldn't handle. The scroll needs to go directly to the Hokage. My mission parameters were updated in the field. The guards exchanged glances but didn't question him further. Naruto's reputation as one of Konoha's most reliable jonin preceded him, and his serious demeanor discouraged casual conversation. As he walked through familiar streets toward the Hokage Tower, Naruto observed his surroundings with new awareness. Shadows clung differently to certain buildings, older structures built during Village's founding seemed wrapped in deeper darkness, while newer constructions cast only mundane shadows. He found himself instinctively cataloging these differences, sensing history and purpose in patterns of shadow he'd never consciously noticed before. Naruto. The call broke his reverie. Sakura Haruno approached from the direction of the hospital, medical scrolls tucked under one arm. Our smile of greeting faltered as she drew closer, medical training allowing her to notice subtle differences in his appearance and bearing. You're back early, she observed, green eyes narrowing slightly. And there's something different about you. Did something happen on the mission? Naruto considered how much to reveal. Sakura was one of his closest friends and allies, but the experience in Temple and his conversation with Kurama felt too personal, too unbelievable to share, at least until he understood it better himself. Ran into some trouble, he admitted with calculated nonchalance. Nothing serious, but I need to report directly to Tsunade-sama. Sakura studied him with the penetrating gaze of a medical professional. You're carrying yourself differently, and your chakra signature is. She trailed off, unable to articulate what her senses detected. Just promise me you'll come by the hospital later for a checkup. If there's time, Naruto agreed, knowing he would avoid the examination. Whatever changes were occurring within him, he doubted conventional medical ninjutsu would properly interpret them. I should go, the Hokage's waiting. Before she could press further, he continued toward the tower, conscious of her concerned gaze following him. Their interaction highlighted another challenge he would face, explaining the subtle but significant changes to those who knew him best. The Hokage's office was as he remembered, sunlight streaming through wide windows, paperwork stacked in organized chaos across the broad desk. Tsunade looked up from a mission report as he entered, amber eyes sharpening with interest at his early return. Uzumaki, she acknowledged, setting aside her work. Your mission wasn't expected to conclude until tomorrow at earliest. Naruto produced the sealed scroll from his vest. Complications arose, Hokage-sama. I encountered enemy shinobi attempting to smuggle this scroll from the abandoned temple near our northern border. After neutralizing the threat, I determined the contents warranted immediate delivery. Tsunade accepted the scroll, breaking the seal with practiced efficiency. Her expression remained neutral as she scanned its contents. But the slight tightening around her eyes betrayed concern. This is unexpected, she murmured, more to herself than to him. Ancient shadow techniques thought lost since the Warring States period. The kind even the Nara clan has only legends about. She looked up at him sharply. Did you examine the contents? Only enough to identify its importance, Naruto lied smoothly. In truth, he hadn't opened the scroll at all, yet somehow knew exactly what it contained. Tsunade leaned back, studying him with the same analytical gaze Sakura had used. You seem different, Naruto. Something happened out there beyond a simple skirmish. It wasn't a question but a statement. The fifth Hokage had always been perceptive, particularly regarding her shinobi's well-being. Naruto weighed his options carefully. Complete honesty was impossible. She would either think him delusional or, worse, potentially dangerous. Yet outright deception would only raise more suspicions. The temple contained historical artifacts relating to forgotten shadow techniques, he said carefully. During the confrontation, I was forced to adapt my own shadow techniques in unorthodox ways. It was educational, not a lie, but nowhere near the whole truth. Tsunade's expression suggested she knew he was withholding information but would not press, for now. I'll have the scroll analyzed by our cryptology department, she decided, securing it in a sealed drawer. In the meantime, consider yourself on mandatory rest for the next 3 days. Whatever educational experiences you had seemed to have taken a toll. Naruto bowed respectfully, recognizing the dismissal. Thank you, Hokage-sama. As he turned to leave, Tsunade's voice stopped him at the threshold. Naruto, whatever you encountered in that temple, be careful with it. Some ancient techniques were forgotten for good reasons. He met her gaze steadily. I understand. Outside the Hokage Tower, Naruto paused to consider his next move. The mandatory rest period was actually welcome. It would give him time to explore the changes occurring within him without the pressures of missions or expectations. You should find somewhere private to practice. Kurama's voice echoed unexpectedly in his mind, causing him to stiffen in surprise. Your connection to shadows will grow stronger each day as more of your divine consciousness integrates with your human mind. You can speak to me while I'm conscious now, Naruto replied mentally, careful to maintain a neutral expression as he walked through the village. A benefit of our partially merged state, she confirmed, though I suggest not responding verbally in public unless you wish to appear insane. Naruto suppressed a smile at her dry humor, directing his thoughts toward the training grounds on the village outskirts. Where should I begin? There's so much I don't understand about what's happening. Start with what comes naturally, Kurama advised. Shadow clone manipulation. Your body remembers skills your mind has yet to recall. The training ground Naruto selected was purposefully isolated, Training Ground 44, better known as the Forest of Death. Outside of Chunin exams, few shinobi ventured into its dangerous depths, making it ideal for experimenting with abilities that might raise questions if observed. Once deep enough within the forest to ensure privacy, Naruto sat cross-legged on a sun-dappled clearing, closing his eyes to focus inward. The usual process of molding chakra felt different now, as if the energy running through his network was richer, more responsive. Let's see what I can do, he murmured, forming the familiar cross-shaped hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The shadow clones that materialized around him appeared normal at first glance, perfect duplicates down to the smallest detail. But as Naruto examined them more closely, he noticed subtle differences. Their eyes held more awareness than typical clones. The shadows they cast seemed more substantial, almost three-dimensional against the forest floor. You're different, he observed, circling one clone thoughtfully. The clone smiled. Not the mirror of Naruto's expression, but its own distinct reaction. We always were. You just couldn't see it before. Naruto froze, disturbed by this deviation from normal clone behavior. Shadow clones were scions of the user's will. They didn't demonstrate independent thought or unique reactions. This is normal, Kurama reassured him. True shadow clones aren't mere copies but fragments of consciousness given temporary form. What humans practice is a diluted version of your original technique. Experimenting further, Naruto discovered these enhanced clones possessed abilities standard shadow clones did not. They could partially dematerialize, passing through solid objects by becoming shadow substance. They retained information even when dispersed violently. Most importantly, they drained significantly less chakra than their conventional counterparts. Hours passed as Naruto explored these new capabilities, pushing boundaries and rediscovering techniques that felt simultaneously novel and deeply familiar. The sun had begun its descent toward the horizon when he finally paused, sweat-drenched but exhilarated by progress that exceeded his expectations. You're adapting quickly, Kurama observed with approval. Faster than I anticipated. Your human form has impressive resilience. Naruto leaned against an ancient tree, allowing his breathing to normalize. It doesn't feel I'm learning new techniques, more like remembering movements my body once knew by heart. Because that's precisely what's happening, she confirmed. The divine consciousness isn't replacing you, Naruto. It's integrating with who you already are. You aren't becoming someone else, you're becoming more fully yourself. The distinction was important, easing fears he hadn't fully acknowledged. From childhood, Naruto had struggled with questions of identity. Was he the demon fox, the orphaned child, the prankster, the shinobi? Each role had shaped him, but none had ever felt completely true. Perhaps this strange awakening wasn't about transformation but completion. Night had fallen by the time Naruto returned to his apartment, muscles pleasantly sore from extended training. The modest, living space felt different somehow, shadows gathering more thickly in corners, responding subtly to his presence like attentive pets. He showered and changed into civilian clothes, mind processing the day's revelations. Sleep seemed impossible with so many questions unanswered, yet physical exhaustion pulled at him relentlessly. He compromised by settling onto his bed with an ancient scroll on Ado techniques he'd borrowed from the Nara clan archives months earlier. The technical descriptions that had once seemed abstract now made perfect sense, like reading instructions for activities he'd performed countless times. Techniques classified as theoretical or impossible struck him as basic, foundational, the building blocks for more complex applications he could visualize with surprising clarity. When sleep finally claimed him, Naruto's dreams were vivid and disorienting, fragments of lives not his own yet intimately connected to his existence. Ancient forests stretched before him, untouched by human development. Mountains that would later host hidden villages stood bare of all but natural growth. Naruto, no, not Naruto, but the being he once was, moved through this primeval landscape with purpose. Shadows swirling around him like a living cloak. Disciples followed at a respectful distance, the first humans to learn the arts of shadow and stealth, primitive forerunners of modern shinobi. Their awe was palpable as they watched their deity demonstrate techniques beyond mortal comprehension. Beside him walked a woman wreathed in golden flame, Kurama in her true form. Neither human nor beast but something transcendent. 9 tails of living fire illuminated the darkness as she matched his pace, their powers complementary opposites in perfect balance. The humans learn quickly, she observed. Voice melodious yet powerful, perhaps too quickly. Some already seek to use these arts for dominance rather than protection. He nodded, troubled by the same observation. Knowledge is a double-edged blade. I cannot control how they use what I teach, only offer guidance and hope wisdom accompanies power. The scene shifted abruptly. Centuries had passed. Primitive settlements had grown into fledgling nations. Warfare had evolved from simple combat to strategic conflicts employing the shadow arts he had taught. His disciples had become clan founders, each putting his teachings to create specialized techniques. He stood atop a mountain, watching battle rage across formerly peaceful valleys. Kurama joined him, her expression solemn. This is the INEV. Table result of sharing divine knowledge with mortals, she said without accusation. Their brief lives make them impatient, hungry for shortcuts to power. Perhaps, he acknowledged, but even in conflict, they grow and evolve. Some use these arts to protect rather than destroy. Balance may yet be achieved. Another shift, further forward in time. A catastrophic battle against a pale-eyed enemy wielding power stolen from divine sources. Sacrificing his physical form to seal away the threat. Kurama's anguished cry as their bond was severed, her essence later fragmented and bound by human seals. His consciousness scattering, preserving core essence with the promise of eventual return when the world faced similar danger. Naruto woke with a gasp, sweat-soaked sheets tangled around him. Dawn light filtered through partially closed blinds, casting striped shadows across his bedroom. The dream, no, memory, lingered with unsettling clarity. You remember, Kurama's voice in his mind was subdued. Almost melancholy. Not everything, Naruto replied, pressing the heels of his hands against his eyes. Fragments. Enough to understand what we once were to each other. Their relationship had been complex. Allies, counterparts, something deeper than friendship but different from human romance. Divine beings operating on a plane where such distinctions blurred into meaninglessness. Why didn't you tell me about our connection? He asked. Would you have believed me? Her response held no defensiveness, only practical understanding of his likely reaction. Own truths must be remembered rather than told. She was right, of course. Without experiencing the memories himself, he would have dismissed her claims as manipulation or delusion. Even now, Part O. Him struggled to reconcile the ancient deity from his dreams with his own identity as Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konoha. Rising from bed, Naruto moved to the window, observing how morning shadows responded to his proximity, lengthening slightly, edges sharpening with unnatural definition. The village below was stirring to life, citizens and shinobi beginning their daily routines unaware that something ancient and powerful had awakened among them. What happens now? He asked Kurama, the question encompassing far more than just their immediate plans. You continue to remember, she replied simply. And prepare. Your awakening will not go unnoticed by those sensitive to divine energies. Some will seek you out as disciples, others as enemies. The balance of power among nations will shift as your true nature becomes impossible to hide. The implication sent a chill through him. I don't want to disrupt the peace we've fought so hard to maintain. Change doesn't always mean conflict, Kurama reminded him. You were once a teacher, a guide. Perhaps that role awaits you again, not as conqueror but as mentor to a world that has forgotten the true origins of its powers. Possibility resonated with something deep within Naruto, the part of him that had always sought recognition not merely for its own sake but as validation of his worth, his ability to positively impact others. If these awakening powers could be directed toward protection and teaching rather than dominance, perhaps this divine heritage was not a burden but an opportunity. A knock at his door interrupted these reflections. Naruto sensed the visitor's chakra signature before opening it. Shikamaru Nara, his expression characteristically bored despite the early hour. Troublesome, the shadow user, greeted him with their usual shorthand for both hello and I have news you won't like. Hokage-sama requests your presence. Apparently that scroll you recovered is causing quite the stir among the elders. Naruto nodded, unsurprised. Give me 5 minutes. As Shikamaru waited in the hallway, Naruto quickly dressed in his Jonin uniform, mind racing through possibilities. Had the scroll revealed something about the Shadow God? About his own nature? The timing seemed too coincidental to be unrelated to his recent awakening. You seem different, Shikamaru observed as they walked toward the Hokage Tower. His tone was casual, but the sharp intelligence behind his lazy demeanor missed nothing. More focused. Less Naruto-ish. Good night's sleep, Naruto deflected with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. What's so important about this scroll that it warrants a morning summons? Shikamaru shrugged. Above my clearance level, but the cryptology department has been working through the night. And I saw members of the Nara Council entering the Hokage's office before dawn. Whatever it contains relates to shadow techniques beyond our current understanding. Precisely as Naruto had expected. They've discovered references to you, asterisk, Kurama confirmed in his mind. Be cautious in how much you reveal. Humans fear what they don't understand, even when it means them no harm. The Hokage's office was unusually crowded when they arrived. Tsunade sat behind her desk, dark circles beneath her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept. Flanking her stood Shizune and two elders from the Nara clan, ancient shinobi whose expertise in shadow techniques was unparalleled. On a side table lay the recovered scroll, now partially unrolled to reveal intricate diagrams and text in an archaic form of the common language. Uzumaki. Tsunade acknowledged him, dismissing Shikamaru with a nod. Once the door closed, leaving Naruto alone with the small group, her expression grew intensely serious. We need to discuss what you found at that temple. Naruto maintained a neutral expression. Has the scroll's content been deciphered? Partially, the elder Nara woman replied, voice cracking with age. Enough to raise profound questions about the origins of our clan's techniques, indeed, about the foundations of ninjutsu itself. The elder man nodded gravely. The scroll describes a divine entity called the Shadow God, Kage no Kami, who supposedly taught the first humans to manipulate shadows and chakra. According to these writings, all modern ninjutsu derives from this being's teachings. Though much has been lost or diluted over centuries, Naruto fought to keep his expression neutral despite the surge of recognition these words triggered. Interesting mythology. But what does this have to do with me? Tsunade's gaze sharpened. The temple where you found this scroll was apparently one of the last intact shrines to this deity. According to the text, the Shadow God's essence was fragmented during an ancient battle, with the promise that it would one day return in human form when the world faced similar danger. The scroll describes certain signs that would accompany this reincarnation. Shizune added carefully, including an unnatural affinity for shadow techniques, particularly shadow clones, and a connection to one of the great guardian beasts. The implication hung heavy in the air. Naruto could feel their collective gaze assessing him, searching for confirmation of suspicions too fantastic to voice directly. They're connecting the dots faster than anticipated, asterisk, Kurama observed. Your reputation with shadow clones, combined with being my Jinchuriki. You think I'm somehow connected to this myth? Naruto asked aloud, careful to project skepticism rather than defensiveness. The female elder approached him slowly, rheumy eyes studying him with unsettling intensity. When you created your first shadow clone, Uzumaki-san, did it feel like learning a technique or remembering one? The question struck uncomfortably close to his recent reflections. Before his conscious mind could formulate a diplomatic response, something deeper and older answered with simple truth, remembering. It always felt like remembering. A heavy silence followed this admission. Tsunade exchanged glances with the elders, unspoken communication passing between them. There's more, she finally said. The scroll mentions trials that the returning deity would face, challenges designed to fully awaken dormant power and prepare for some great conflict. The First trial is described as the Temple of Blood and Shadow, where divine essence begins its awakening. The temple where he'd fought the assassins, where his blood had spilled on ancient stones carved with images of a shadow deity, where everything had changed. This is speculation based on fragmentary ancient text, Naruto said, deflecting rather than denying. Myths often contain kernels of historical truth wrapped in layers of exaggeration and symbolism. Perhaps, Tsunade conceded, but we cannot ignore the coincidences. Your unprecedented skill with shadow clones, your connection to the Nine Tails, and now this scroll, found in circumstances that align disturbingly well with prophecy. The male elder stepped forward. We would like to conduct certain tests, Uzumaki-san. Nothing invasive, simply exercises to measure your affinity for advanced shadow techniques described in the scroll. Techniques that, according to these writings, only the Shadow God or his direct disciples could perform. Naruto weighed his options carefully. Refusal would only heighten suspicions, while compliance might reveal more than he was prepared to share. Yet the opportunity to learn techniques from his scroll, techniques he had once created, was too valuable to dismiss. I'm willing to participate, he agreed cautiously. On the condition that any findings remain classified at the highest level until we determine their significance. The last thing Konoha needs is rumors about divine reincarnation disrupting village stability. Tsunade nodded, relief evident in her posture. Agreed. We'll beg in tomorrow at the secure training facility beneath Anbu headquarters. For today, continue your rest as ordered. She hesitated, then added with uncharacteristic gentleness, and Naruto, whatever we discover, remember that who you are, the person you've become, matters more than any ancient heritage. The sentiment touched him unexpectedly. Throughout his life, Naruto had fought to be seen as himself rather than as the Nine Tails container. Now he faced a similar challenge on an even more profound scale. Was he Naruto Uzumaki who happened to carry the Shadow God's essence, or the Shadow God temporarily wearing Naruto's identity? Both and neither. Kurama answered his unspoken question as he left the Hokage's office. The divine and human aspects will eventually achieve balance, creating something new that honors both origins. The remainder of the day passed in quiet preparation. Naruto reviewed what he remembered of shadow techniques, both those commonly known and those that had come to him through recent awakening. He meditated in his apartment, strengthening the connection to Kurama and exploring fragments of memory from his divine past. As evening approached, restlessness drove him to the village outskirts. Without conscious decision, his feet carried him to the old training ground where Team 7 had first come together, 3 wooden posts standing sentinel in a clearing that held so many memories. I thought I might find you here. Kakashi's voice came from behind him, the Jonin appearing with his customary silent grace. His visible eye curved in his characteristic smile, though something more serious lurked beneath the casual demeanor. Tsunade-sama mentioned you'd had an interesting mission, his former sensei commented, leaning against one of the wooden posts. Found some ancient scroll that has the Nara clan elders practically vibrating with excitement. Naruto smiled faintly. You could say that. Kakashi studied him with the penetrating gaze had always seen more than his students realized. You know, the first time I saw you perform the shadow clone jutsu, I was surprised by how naturally it came to you. Most shinobi struggle with the chi technique. The chakra distribution has to be perfect, the mental division taxing. But you created dozens without apparent effort, even as a genin. I had larger chakra reserves than most, Naruto deflected. Though they both knew that explained only part of the phenomenon. Perhaps, Kakashi agreed mildly. Or perhaps there was always something different about your relationship with shadows. He straightened, hands sliding into his pockets. Whatever you're becoming, Naruto, remember that change doesn't erase what came before. It builds upon it. The echo of Kurama's earlier sentiment wasn't lost on Naruto. How much has Tsunade-sama told you? Enough to know you might need a friend who asks no questions but offers support anyway, Kakashi replied simply. My door is always open, should you need it. The offer touched Naruto deeply. Throughout his life, Kakashi had been mentor, guide, and eventually peer, a constant presence who had seen him at his best and worst without judgment. That this bond would extend even into the strange territory of divine awakening felt both surprising and inevitable. Thank you, Naruto said sincerely. After Kakashi departed, Naruto remained at the training ground as twilight deepened into true darkness. The shadows lengthened around him, responding to his presence with subtle movements no ordinary human would notice. The moon rose, nearly full, casting silver light that created new patterns of darkness against which he could test his growing control. Tomorrow they will confirm what they already suspect, Kurama observed as Naruto experimented with manipulating his shadow into three-dimensional forms. The techniques in that scroll will respond to you in ways impossible for ordinary shinobi. Then we don't hide it, Naruto decided. We guide the narrative. I am still Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konoha. If I also carry the essence of something older, that doesn't change my loyalties or principles. Wise approach, she approved. The truth would emerge eventually regardless. Better to shape understanding than have it forced upon you. A rustle in the underbrush alerted Naruto to another presence, not human but animal. A small fox emerged from the shadows, regarding him with unusual intelligence. Its fur gleamed silver in the moonlight, eyes reflecting an unnatural awareness. One of my lesser kin, asterisk, Kurama explained. News of your awakening spreads through channels humans cannot perceive. The natural world responds to divine presence. The fox approached cautiously, stopping a respectful distance away before bowing its head in a gesture too deliberate to be coincidental. When it raised its gaze again, Naruto could have sworn he saw recognition in those wild eyes, acknowledgement of something ancient and powerful awakening within the human form before it. Naruto inclined his head in return, accepting the tribute with a grace that felt foreign yet natural. The fox observed him a moment longer. Before melting back into the forest shadows, its message delivered. It begins, Naruto murmured to the empty clearing. And somewhere within him, the shadow god stirred in agreement. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Divine Revelations. Shadows should not move against the light. This fundamental law of nature, immutable, unchanging since time began, no longer applied to Naruto Uzumaki. In the sterile white room beneath Anbu headquarters, surrounded by Konoha's foremost shadow technique specialists, he defied reality with casual grace. Impossible, whispered the elder Nara woman, gnarled fingers trembling as she clutched her cane. He's manipulating shadow without a source, creating darkness where none should exist. The technique in question, described in the ancient scroll as Kage no Ibuki, O.R., shadow's breath, involved generating shadow substance from one's own chakra, independent of external light sources. According to the scroll, only the shadow god himself had mastered this foundational ability, from which all other shadow techniques derived. Naruto stood in the center of the room, surrounded by blinding lights specifically arranged to eliminate all natural shadows. Yet darkness cooled around his feet like spilled ink, rising and falling with his measured breathing. Not shadow cast by his body, but something conjured from within, primal darkness given substance through will alone. Remarkable affinity, murmured the male elder, making notations on a scroll. His chakra signature doesn't fluctuate during manipulation. No strain whatsoever, Tsunade observed from behind one-way glass. Expression unreadable as Naruto progressed through increasingly complex techniques. They had been at this for hours, working through ancient shadow manipulations described in the recovered scroll. Techniques the Nara clan had considered theoretical at best, impossible at worst. Naruto performed each one with intuitive ease, as if relearning muscle memory rather than attempting novel skills. Try the binding technique described in the third passage, instructed the female elder. The one requiring multiple anchor points. Naruto nodded, reviewing the scroll description briefly before setting it aside. Kage no Kusari, he murmured, shadow chains. The darkness surrounding him shot outward in multiple directions, forming intricate patterns across the floor before rising into three-dimensional constructs. Unlike the Nara clan's shadow possession technique, which required connecting the user's shadow to the targets, these shadow chains materialized independently, weaving out the air with serpentine grace before encircling specified targets. The Anbu operatives positioned as test subjects found themselves immobilized by bands of living darkness that responded not to their struggles but to Naruto's will alone. More impressively, once established, the technique required no ongoing concentration. The chains maintained integrity and purpose without continuous chakra input. That's enough, the male elder decided, signaling for the test to conclude. We've seen sufficient evidence. The shadow chains dissolved, returning to Naruto like obedient pets. He allowed he self-generated darkness to dissipate as well, the room returning to its stark brightness. Only then did the subtle strain of maintaining such precise control become visible, a light sheen of sweat across his brow. Slightly accelerated breathing, you're progressing faster than expected, Kurama observed within his mindscape. But remember that your human form has limitations the shadow god did not. Pace yourself. It's strange, Naruto replied mentally as the elders conferred in hushed tones. These techniques feel both foreign and intimately familiar, like songs half remembered from childhood. Your demonstration confirms our suspicions, the female elder announced, approaching with surprising formality. The techniques described in this scroll should be impossible for any ordinary shinobi, regardless of talent or training. Yet you perform them with intuitive understanding that cannot be explained by conventional means. Tsunade entered from the observation room, amber. eyes assessing Naruto with clinical precision. What's your conclusion? The male elder stroked his beard thoughtfully. The evidence suggests Uzumaki-san possesses an unprecedented connection to Sha. Dao manipulation consistent with the scroll's description of the Shadow God's abilities. Whether this represents divine reincarnation or some unique genetic predisposition is beyond our capacity to determine. And your recommendation? Tsunade pressed. Classified training, he replied without hesitation. Uzumaki-san should continue developing these abilities under controlled circumstances with appropriate documentation. The potential applications for village security are considerable. Naruto listened to this exchange with outward calm that belied his internal conflict. Part of him, the Oil Konoha shinobi, understood the strategic value of developing these abilities under village oversight. Another part, increasingly influenced by ancient memories, recognized these powers extended far beyond military applications, representing a fundamental connection to natural forces that predated hidden villages entirely. If I may, he interjected respectfully, these techniques represent only a fraction of what the scroll describes. I believe there are locations mentioned, temples or training grounds, where more advanced abilities could be explored. The elders exchanged glances before the woman nodded reluctantly. The scroll references several sacred sites dedicated to shadow arts. Most would be ruins now, if they exist at all. But worth investigating, Tsunade concluded. She fixed Naruto with a penetrating stare. I'm authorizing a special research mission. You'll investigate these sites, document your findings, and continue developing these techniques under the remote supervision of the Nara elders. Alone? Naruto questioned, surprised by this degree of autonomy. With a small, specialized team of your choosing, Tsunade clarified. This situation requires discretion, not a standard squad composition. Select individuals you trust implicitly, no more than 3. You depart in 2 days. As the meeting concluded, Naruto felt simultaneously relieved and burdened by this development. Freedom to explore his awakening abilities came with implicit expectations of eventual military application, expectations at odds with his growing understanding of what these powers truly represented. Politics and divine power rarely mix well, Kurama commented dryly as Naruto departed Anbu headquarters. Though you navigate the constraints better than most would. I serve Konoha, Naruto affirmed, though the statement felt increasingly complex. But these abilities aren't weapons to be catalogued and deployed. There's something more fundamental. A truth the elders wouldn't appreciate. Kurama agreed. Choose your team carefully, Naruto. This journey will reveal more than shadow techniques. Evening shadows stretched long across Konoha as Naruto sat atop the Hokage monument. Legs dangling over the carved visage of his father. The village spread below like a living entity, lanterns beginning to illuminate streets as day surrendered to night. From this elevation, he could trace patterns of darkness between buildings, shadow roads invisible to ordinary sight but increasingly apparent to his awakening senses. Who will you choose? Kurama asked, her presence warm in his consciousness. Naruto considered the question carefully. Shikamaru seems obvious given his clan's shadow affinity, but his analytical mind might draw conclusions I'm not ready to address. Sakura's medical expertise could be valuable, but her loyalty to Tsunade might complicate matters. What about your former teacher? The one with the covered eye? Kakashi, Naruto supplied. Yes, his experience and discretion would be invaluable. He's also one of the few who might accept the more metaphysical aspects of what's happening without immediate skepticism. The decision crystallized as Naruto watched darkness claim the village. Kakashi would be his primary choice, experienced enough to provide guidance, open-minded enough to accept the inexplicable. For the remaining positions, he would wait for circumstances to provide clarity. A flicker of familiar chakra alerted him to approaching company moments before Kakashi materialized nearby, orange book conspicuously absent for once. Contemplating the mysteries of the universe, the silver-haired Jonin inquired, settling beside Naruto with casual grace. Naruto smiled faintly. Something like that. Tsunade briefed me on your unique situation. Kakashi gazed out over the darkening landscape, his single visible eye reflecting the village lights. Ancient scrolls, divine reincarnation, Dao powers beyond conventional understanding. Just another Tuesday for Team 7, I suppose. The casual humor eased tension Naruto hadn't realized he was carrying. I'm putting together a team for a research mission, investigating sites connected to these shadow techniques. And you want someone who won't freak out when you start breaking fundamental laws of physics, Kakashi surmised with characteristic perception. Something like that, Naruto echoed, grateful for the implicit understanding. There's more happening than I can explain even to myself right now. I need someone who can accept that ambiguity. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully. Count me in. Though fair warning, my expertise with ancient divine entities is somewhat limited. Mostly restricted to that time guy convinced himself. He was the reincarnated spirit of youth after eating suspicious mushrooms. Naruto laughed genuinely for the first time in days. The normalcy of Kakashi's eccentricity provided welcome contrast to the increasingly surreal nature of his existence. We leave in 2 days, he confirmed. I'm still considering options for the remaining team members. Perhaps fate will provide, Kakashi suggested with uncharacteristic mysticism. His gaze shifted suddenly, focusing on something beyond the village gates. Speaking of which, Naruto followed his line of sight, enhanced senses detecting what ordinary shinobi could not. 2 figures approaching Konoha's main gate, moving with the distinctive efficiency of experienced ninja. Even at this distance, he could sense something unusual about the raw signature of the female figure, a resonance that called to something deep within him. Another Jinchuriki, Kurama identified immediately. The Two Tails host. Curious timing. I should greet our visitors, Naruto decided, rising fluidly to his feet. The shorter one is a Jinchuriki from Kumogakure. Kakashi's visible eyebrow raised fractionally. Your sensory abilities have improved. Among other things, Naruto agreed. Deliberately vague. I'll meet you tomorrow to discuss mission preparations. Without further explanation, he stepped off the monument edge, shadows rising to engulf him mid-fall. Rather than plummeting to the ground below, Naruto merged with the darkness itself, traveling through the village's shadow network with disorienting speed. The technique, Shadow Walk, had emerged spontaneously during his private practice, allowing near-instantaneous movement between connected areas of darkness. He rematerialized in an alley near the main gate, the transition from shadow to substance still strange enough to momentarily disorient him. Adjusting his Jonin vest, Naruto approached the checkpoint with deliberate casualness, arriving just as the visitors presented credentials to the Chunin guards. Diplomatic envoy from Kumogakure, the male visitor was explaining. Tall and dark-skinned, he carried a massive sword strapped across his broad back. Urgent message for your Hokage from Raikage-sama. Quote. The female beside him remained silent, arms crossed defensively. Petite but athletic, with platinum blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, her most striking feature was slitted pupils that gave her eyes a distinctly feline appearance. Despite her outward composure, Naruto sensed tension coiled within her like a spring, tension that visibly increased as she detected his approach. Her head snapped toward him, nostrils flaring slightly. You, she stated without preamble, ignoring protocol and the startled reactions of the gate guards. You're the one. Naruto maintained a neutral expression despite his surprise. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Jonin of Konohagakure. Welcome to our village. He turned to the confused guards. I'll escort our guests to the Hokage Tower. Yugito ni. She introduced herself curtly as they moved away from the checkpoint. This is Omoi. We've traveled 3 days without rest because the Two Tails wouldn't stop howling about a disturbance in the Biju network. Quote. Her directness was refreshing if somewhat jarring. Naruto led them through side streets to avoid crowds, processing this new information with growing interest. The Biju can sense your awakening, Kurama confirmed. Our kind exists both physically and in dimensions beyond human perception. The changes in your chakra have rippled through those connections. When did this disturbance begin? Naruto asked aloud. 5 days ago, Yugito answered immediately. Matabi became increasingly agitated, insisting something fundamental had shifted. She demanded I find the source. Her cat-like eyes narrowed suspiciously. Which apparently is you. What exactly have you done to disrupt the Biju equilibrium, Uzumaki Naruto? Omoi sighed dramatically, unsheathing a lollipop from somewhere in his uniform. You'll have to forgive Yugito-san's bluntness. 3 days of her arguing with her Biju has left little room for diplomatic niceties. It's all right, Naruto assured him. Mind racing through implications. Yugito's arrival complicated matters, but potentially offered valuable perspective from another Jinchuriki who might understand aspects of his transformation that ordinary shinobi could not. The full explanation should wait for the Hokage, he said diplomatically. But yes, something has changed. The 9 tails within me has undergone a transformation. One with implications for all Biju, apparently. Yugito's posture shifted subtly from confrontational to intensely curious. Matabi said the oldest one was awakening. That Lance was returning to a system long corrupted. She studied him with penetrating intensity. You don't look particularly ancient or divine. The accurate assessment startled a laugh from Naruto. That's still under investigation. I like this one, Kurama commented with unusual approval. Direct, perceptive, and unafraid. Her Biju has taught her well. Tsunade received the Kumo delegation immediately despite the late hour. Her sharp gaze assessing Yugito with professional interest. As the only female Jinchuriki currently active in the shinobi world, the Cloud Ninja had garnered significant reputation for her complete mastery over her Biju's powers, a harmonious partnership rare among hosts. Reikage-sama sends his concerns regarding an unprecedented chakra disturbance originating from Konoha, Omoi explained formally. Presenting a sealed scroll, our sensors detected a massive energy fluctuation 5 days ago, followed by subtle but persistent changes in the nature of Biju chakra throughout the network. Tsunade's gaze flicked briefly to Naruto before returning to the Kumo ninja. We're aware of certain developments. They're currently under investigation with appropriate precautions. With respect, Hokage-sama, Yugito interjected, formality barely containing her intensity. This extends beyond village politics. The Biju are reporting communication with an entity they haven't encountered in centuries, possibly millennia. Matabi insists this represents the return of something that existed before the Sage of Six Paths himself. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The Sage of Six Paths represented the earliest known wielder of chakra in the shinobi world, the progenitor from whom all modern techniques descended. Anything predating him belonged to myth rather than history. I see. Tsunade steepled her fingers thoughtfully. And your Biju directed you specifically to Naruto. Yugito nodded. The disturbance centers on him. Or more accurately, on the 9 tails within him, though Matabi insists the changes extend beyond the fox itself. She doesn't understand yet, Kurama observed. Matabi senses the awakening Ut hasn't explained the full significance to her host. Tsunade made a decision with characteristic directness. Naruto is preparing for a research mission related to these developments. Given your Biju's apparent connection to the situation, I propose including you in this expedition, assuming the Reikage's correspondence permits such cooperation. Omoi coughed awkwardly. Actually, Hokage-sama, the Reikage's instructions were quite specific. If the disturbance proved connected to the 9 tails Jinchuriki, Yugito-san was authorized to stick to him like static electricity to cat fur, until the situation clarified. Poetic, Tsunade commented dryly. Then it's settled. Yugito-ni will join Naruto's research team, serving as both Kumo representative and Biju specialist. Omoi-san can return with my formal response to the Reikage. After finalizing diplomatic arrangements, Naruto found himself walking the village perimeter with Yugito, an unspoken agreement to continue their conversation beyond official channels. Night had fully claimed Konoha, the waning moon casting silver light that transformed ordinary streets into landscapes of contrast, perfect conditions for shadow work. Your Biju calls itself Kurama now, Yugito stated rather than asked as they reached a secluded training ground. And appears as a woman rather than a fox. Matabi finds this highly amusing for reasons she refuses to explain. Naruto's steps faltered momentarily. How could your Biju possibly know that? Yugito shrugged, her movement fluid and faintly feline. They communicate in ways we can't perceive. Matabi says the barriers between Biju have thinned since your awakening. She circled him slowly, evaluating with predatory focus that should have felt threatening but instead RKED something like recognition, one container of ancient power recognizing another. Show me, she demanded suddenly, stopping directly before him. Whatever changed 5 days ago? I need to see it firsthand. Naruto hesitated, glancing around to ensure their privacy before nodding slowly. Stand back, he advised, moving to the center of the moonlit clearing. Closing his eyes, Naruto focused inward, connecting to the wellspring of shadow that now existed permanently within him. Rather than channeling chakra in the conventional sense, he allowed his divine essence to surface partially, to demonstrate without fully revealing the extent of his transformation. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Shadows throughout the clearing responded to his presence, stretching toward him like iron filings to a magnet. Darkness pooled around his feet before rising in spiraling patterns around his body, forming intricate designs that resembled ancient script. His eyes, when he opened them, had transformed from cerulean blue to depthless black, with tiny pinpricks of light resembling distant stars. Don't overextend, Kurama cautioned. Your control is still developing. Yugito's action was fascinating, initial shock giving way to recognition that seemed to come from somewhere beyond conscious thought. She approached cautiously, hand outstretched as if to touch the swirling shadows before catching herself. Kage no Kami, she whispered, the title emerging unbidden. Her eyes widened at her own words. That wasn't me. Matabi spoke through me. Naruto allowed the manifestation to subside, shadows reluctantly returning to their natural positions as his eyes reverted to normal. The shadow god, he translated, the confirmation sending an odd ripple of recognition through him. Yes, that's what the ancient scroll called the entity whose essence I apparently carry. This is significantly more complicated than a biju acting up, Yugito observed with admirable understatement. She sat cross-legged on the grass, indicating Naruto should join her. Tell me everything, from the beginning. No diplomatic filters or village secrets. If our biju are involved, we're beyond ordinary politics. Her pragmatism resonated with Naruto's own approach to the inexplicable. For the next hour, he detailed his experience in the abandoned temple, the conversation with Kurama, and his gradually awakening abilities. Yugito listened without interruption, occasionally nodding as if confirming details with her own biju. Matabi says the biju were originally created to maintain in balance after the shadow god's disappearance, she revealed when he finished. The Sage of Six Paths didn't create them so much as reshape entities that already existed in some form. Their true purpose was forgotten over generations. This aligned with fragments of memory Naruto had recovered, impressions of guardians established before his consciousness scattered, intended to protect specific aspects of the natural world in his absence. And now that I'm awakening, that original purpose is resurfacing, he concluded thoughtfully. Yugito nodded. Matabi feels jubilant about this development, like a soldier whose true commander has returned after an extended absence. She fixed him with a penetrating stare. But you're not fully awakened yet. The process is ongoing. She understands more quickly than most would. Kurama noted approvingly. Her connection with Matabi is exceptionally harmonious. The research mission should help accelerate the process, Naruto explained. We'll investigate sites connected to the shadow god, possibly containing knowledge or artifacts that could clarify what's happening. Then I'm definitely coming, Yugito decided with characteristic directness. Matabi insists this concerns all biju, and I admit I'm personally curious. A rare smile transformed her serious features. Besides, how often does one get to witness the return of a deity? The casual way she referenced his divine nature, without either skepticism or reverence, was unexpectedly refreshing. Unlike the Konoha elders who viewed his transformation primarily through the lens of military application, or Tsunade whose concern centered on village security, Yugito approached the situation with straightforward pragmatism tempered by genuine curiosity. Welcome to the team, Naruto agreed. Extending his hand, Yugito's grip was firm, her palm surprisingly warm against his increasingly cool skin. The contact sparked an unexpected connection, a brief flash of deep perception where Naruto glimpsed blue flames dancing in darkness while Yugito momentarily experienced the vast expanse of shadow that constituted his divine consciousness. They broke contact simultaneously, both startled by the unexpected communion. That was unusual, Yugito commented, flexing her fingers experimentally. An affinity between shadow and flame, Kurama explained. Matata, Bai's essence resonates with aspects of your divine nature. Before Naruto could process these implications, a distinctive chakra signature approached with deliberate openness, announcing presence rather than attempting stealth. Moments later, Shikamaru Nara stepped into the clearing, hands characteristically tucked into pockets. "Thought I'd find you here," he addressed Naruto before acknowledging Yugito with a respectful nod. Word travels fast when Kumo sends a Jinchuriki diplomat. "Nara-san," Naruto greeted him, curious about this unexpected visit. "Something urgent," Shikamaru surveyed the moonlit clearing with calculated nonchalance that didn't quite mask his sharp observation of the unnaturally positioned shadows, evidence of Naruto's recent demonstration. "The elders briefed our clan about your unique situation," he explained. "Troublesome as it is, I thought you should know that not everything in that scroll was shared with Tsunade-sama." His expression grew uncharacteristically serious. There were passages specifically addressed to the shadow god's return that the elders deemed too sensitive for general knowledge. Even Hokage-level clearance. This revelation sent a chill through Naruto that had nothing to do with his affinity for darkness. "What kind of passages?" "Warnings, mostly." Shikamaru extracted a folded paper from his vest, offering it with evident reluctance. "About a group called the Twilight Cult, descendants of those who originally fought against the Shadow God. According to clan records, they've existed in secret for centuries, preparing for the deity's eventual return." Naruto accepted the paper, unfolding it to reveal text copied from the original scroll in Shikamaru's precise handwriting. The passage described a fanatical organizatee dedicated to harvesting divine power for human use, the original adversaries who had contributed to the Shadow God's fall millennia ago. "This aligns with my fragmented memories," Kurama confirmed grimly. "The final battle wasn't just against a single enemy but an organization seeking to claim divine power through forbidden techniques. The elders believe this cult still exists," Shikamaru continued, watching Naruto's expression carefully, "and that your awakening will draw them out of hiding. They've likely been monitoring sites connected to the Shadow God for generations. Which means our research mission might lead us straight to them," Yugito concluded, quickly grasping the implications. Shikamaru nodded. "Hence my troublesome midnight visit. The elders wouldn't approve of me sharing this information. But as your friend," he trailed off, uncomfortable with explicit sentiment. "I appreciate it," Naruto said sincerely, recognizing the risk Shikamaru had taken. "This changed our preparation requirements significantly." A decision crystallized with the new information. "Join us," Naruto invited, surprising himself with the spontaneity of the offer. "Your shadow techniques, while different from what I'm developing, would provide valuable perspective. And frankly, we could use your strategic mind." Shikamaru sighed dramatically, though the gleam in his eye betrayed genuine interest. "Tracking down ancient temples while avoiding cultists who've been planning for centuries to destroy a reincarnated deity. Troublesome doesn't begin to cover it." He paused, then shrugged with deliberate casualness. "But I suppose someone needs to make sure you don't accidentally destroy reality while figuring out your divine powers." "That's 3, Yugito noted, counting team members. The Hokage authorized one more, correct?" "Yes," Naruto confirmed, "though I'm beginning to think we should." A sudden, violent pulse of foreign chakra interrupted his thought, malevolent chi energy spiking from the direction of Konoha's northern border. The sensation hit Naruto with physical force, driving him to one knee as his senses, now hypertuned to shadow energies, detected a fundamental disturbance in natural darkness. "Someone is manipulating shadows unnaturally," Kurama hissed, revulsion evident in her tone. "Corrupting the essence rather than working with it." "Naruto." Shikamaru was at his side instantly, concern overriding his usual detachment. "What's wrong?" "North border," Naruto managed, rising shakily as the initial shock subsided. "Someone's using corrupted shadow techniques. Powerful ones." Yugito's eyes narrowed, head tilting as if listening to internal communication. "Matabi senses it too. Says it tastes like shadow techniques filtered through human sacrifice." Without further discussion, the 3 shinobi moved in unison toward the disturbance, abandoning normal travel methods for pure speed. Naruto found himself automatically taking point, instinct driving him toward the violation of natural law he sensed in the distance. They reached the border region within minutes, stopping atop a ridge overlooking a small clearing where the disturbance originated. Below, two figures in distinctive black cloaks decorated with red clouds worked over an elaborate ritual circle drawn in what appeared to be blood. A third figure, bound and clearly terrified, knelt at the center of the array. Akatsuki, Shikamaru identified in a harsh whisper. Hidan and Kakuzu. Naruto recognized the pair from bingo book entries, S-rank criminals known for religious fanaticism and forbidden techniques, respectively. Their presence near Konoha was concerning enough, but the nature of their ritual raised far more alarming possibilities. They're attempting to track Biju through shadow pathways. Naruto realized, interpreting the ritual's purpose through his awakening divine knowledge. Using human sacrifice to force access to interdimensional corridors normally accessible only to entities like the Shadow God. Can they succeed? Yugito asked tersely. Not fully, Naruto assessed, studying the flawed array. But they might gain enough access to locate Jinchuriki through the Biju's connection to Shadow Realms. Shikamaru's analytical mind quickly grasped the strategic implications. If Akatsuki gains that capability, no Jinchuriki would be safe anywhere. They could track targets across any distance. We can't allow that, Yugito stated flatly, already preparing for combat. Naruto raised a hand, stopping her. Wait, this may not be coincidental. Their attempt comes days after my awakening altered the Shadow Realm's dynamics. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Someone directed them here, someone with knowledge of divine shadow techniques. The cult Shikamaru mentioned, Yugito suggested. Possibly. Naruto's expression hardened as the ritual below intensified, the prisoner's terrified whimpers becoming audible across the distance. Regardless, we need to stop this now. He assessed their options with tactical precision enhanced by awakening divine perspective. Yugito, circle behind them and prepare to extract the prisoner when I create an opening. Shikamaru, your shadow techniques might interact unpredictably with what they're doing. Stay in reserve and analyze their methods. I'll engage directly. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Naruto stepped forward and simply vanished. Not in a swirl of leaves or flash of movement, but by literally merging with the mooncast shadow beneath his feet. His consciousness stretched along darkness, traveling the short distance to the clearing below in an instant before reforming directly behind the Akatsuki members. This ritual is over, he announced, voice carrying other worldly resonance that surprised even him. Both missing nin spun to face the unexpected interruption, expressions shifting from surprise to calculated assessment. Hidan, the silver-haired zealot, recovered first, maniacal grin spreading across his face. Well, Jashin-sama must be feeling generous tonight, delivering a Jinchuriki right to us. He swung his three-bladed scythe in anticipation. Your sacrifice will be exquisite. Kakuzu, the masked ancient, showed more restraint. His unnerving green eyes narrowed as he studied Naruto with centuries of combat experience. Something's different about this one, he observed coolly. His chakra signature is unusual. They don't yet realize what they're facing, Kurama noted. But the masked one senses something beyond ordinary Jinchuriki power. Step away from the ritual circle, Naruto commanded, shadows beginning to gather around him like a living cloak. Your technique is flawed and dangerous, not just to your victim but to the natural order itself. Hidan laughed derisively. Listen to this brat, lecturing S-rank criminals about proper ritual technique. He stepped forward aggressively, seemingly eager for combat despite interrupting their work. Let me educate you on true sacrifice, Jinchuriki. The scythe whistled through the air with unnatural speed, its trajectory calculated to draw blood rather than kill. Immediately, consistent with Hidan's documented fighting style, Naruto didn't dodge physically. Instead, the shadow cloak surrounding him solidified momentarily, catching the blade between layers of darkness that shifted like armor plates. Hidan's eyes widened in genuine shock. What the? Naruto didn't allow him to complete the thought. Shadows exploded outward from his form in razor-sharp tendrils, forcing both Akatsuki members to retreat from the ritual circle. The momentary distraction provided Yugito the opening she needed, a blur of motion as she extracted the bound prisoner and retreated to safety in a single fluid movement. Kakuzu, Hidan hissed to his partner, unusual seriousness replacing his typical bloodlust. This isn't normal Jinchuriki stuff. The masked ninja had already reached the same conclusion. The intelligence was accurate, he stated cryptically. The Nine Tails host has undergone the transformation they predicted. This confirmation of outside knowledge about his awakening validated Naruto's suspicions. Someone had directed Akatsuki here, someone with specific interest in his emerging divine nature. Who sent you? Naruto demanded, maintaining combat readiness while probing for information. Who told you about changes to the Biju network? Kakuzu's eyes reflected cold calculation rather than concern despite their compromised position. Information is valuable, Jinchuriki. More valuable than a single failed ritual. Without warning, the earth beneath the ritual circle erupted as Kakuzu activated some previously planted explosive tags, not aimed at the Konoha shinobi but at the ritual array itself. The carefully drawn symbols detonated in a controlled pattern, releasing a shockwave of corrupted shadow energy that rippled outward like a tsunami of darkness. He's collapsing the ritual to release its stored energy. Kurama warned urgently. Contain it before it spreads. Acting on instinct rather than conscious knowledge, Naruto thrust both hands forward, commanding the corrupted shadows with divine authority rather than ninja technique. The unnatural darkness hesitated in its expansion, caught between opposing forces, the ritual's momentum versus the shadow god's innate dominion over all shadow. For several heartbeats, the outcome remained uncertain. Sweat beaded on Naruto's forehead as he exerted power still unfamiliar to his human form. The corrupted shadow resisted his command, writhing like a living entity desperate to escape confinement. Then something shifted within Naruto, a deeper connection to his divine essence, catalyzed by necessity. His eyes transformed completely, becoming pools of star-flecked darkness as he spoke a single word in a language no human tongue had uttered for millennia. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The corrupted shadows instantly stilled, then reversed direction, flowing toward Naruto like water down a drain. He absorbed the malevolent energy, converting its nature through divine will before releasing it safely back to the natural cycle of darkness. When the process completed, Naruto stood transformed, not physically, but in the aura of power surrounding him. Even Hidan, normally impervious to intimidation, took an involuntary step backward. Kakuzu, the zealot muttered, I don't think Jashin-sama would mind if we postponed this particular sacrifice. The masked ninja had already reached the same conclusion, hands forming rapid seals. Mission parameters included withdrawal if the subject demonstrated Class A manifestation, he stated clinically. This qualifies. Before Naruto could prevent their escape, both Akatsuki members vanished in a specialized transportation technique, not standard ninja teleportation but something that utilized shadow pathways themselves, albeit crudely. They're gone, Shikamaru confirmed, joining Naruto in the clearing as Yugito approached with the rescued prisoner, a terrified civilian woodcutter who appeared more shocked by his rescuers than his captors. They had specialized escape methods prepared, Naruto observed, troubled by the implication. And specific mission parameters regarding my abilities. Someone briefed them very thoroughly. The ritual was sophisticated, Shikamaru noted, examining the scorched remains of the array. Elements of Nara clan techniques, but corrupted with blood sacrifice compound. Hence no legitimate shadow practitioner would consider. Yugito rejoined them after ensuring the civilian was safely on his way to Konoha. Matabi is unsettled by what just happened. Says the writ, UAL was attempting to create artificial pathways through what she calls the void between realms using sacrificial energy as substitute for divine authority. A crude but potentially effective approach, Naruto acknowledged. Troubling memories surfacing from his divine consciousness, ancient humans attempting similar shortcuts to power with catastrophic results. What you did at the end, Shikamaru began cautiously. Converting that corrupted energy rather than simply containing it. That wasn't any shadow technique I've ever encountered. It wasn't a technique at all, Naruto admitted quietly. More like asserting ownership. Shadow responding to its original master. The implication hung heavily in the cool night air. Until this moment, aspects of Naruto's divine nature had manifested primarily as enhanced versions of existing ninja abilities. This development represented something qualitatively different, power that operated on principles beyond shinobi understanding. We should report this to Tsunade-sama, Shikamaru suggested pragmatically. Akatsuki operating this close to the village, with apparent knowledge of your condition. Agreed, Naruto confirmed, but we keep certain details classified. The nature of what I did to neutralize the ritual stays between us for now. As they turned to leave, Naruto paused, sensing something overlooked amid the confrontation's chaos. Approaching the ritual's center, he knelt to examine a small object half buried in scorched earth, a coin-sized medallion of black metal inscribed with an unfamiliar symbol. "What is it?" Yugito asked, observing his interest. Naruto lifted the medallion carefully, an unexpected shock of recognition passing through him as his fingers contacted the metal. A cultist token, he identified, ancient knowledge surfacing. Specifically, the emblem of the Twilight Cult, those who opposed the Shadow God in the ancient past. So they do still exist, Shikamaru concluded grimly. And they're coordinating with Akatsuki. Not just coordinating, Naruto corrected, pocketing the medallion. Directing them. This ritual bears their signature modifications to traditional shadow techniques, core eruptions designed to harvest and redirect divine energy rather than work in harmony with it. The implications were troubling on multiple levels. Akatsuki already represented a significant threat to world stability with their Biju hunting agenda. An alliance with a cult possessing ancient knowledge of divine techniques created potential for far greater damage. Our research mission just became more urgent, Naruto decided. If the Twilight Cult is emerging from hiding, we need to locate the Shadow God's temples before they do. There may be artifacts or knowledge crucial to understanding what we're facing. And our fourth team member? Yugito prompted. Naruto's expression hardened with resolve. We need someone with extensive knowledge of ancient civilizations and forgotten religions. Someone who can translate texts and identify artifacts predating the hidden village system. You're thinking of the Toad Sage, Shikamaru surmised. Jiraiya, Naruto confirmed. If anyone in the Five Nations has encountered references to the Shadow God or the Twilight Cult in his travels, it would be him. Their return to Konoha carried new urgency. What had begun as a research mission to express lore Naruto's awakening abilities had transformed into something far more critical, a race against enemies with millennia of preparation and unknown capabilities. As they approached the village gates, the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky. Naruto felt the shadows of night reluctantly receding, though his connection to them remained undiminished even in growing light. The day ahead would bring difficult explanations and accelerated preparations, but one certainty had emerged from the night's events. The Shadow God was awakening fully now, catalyzed by direct challenge to his domain. And the world, both human and divine, would need to adjust to this reality much sooner than anyone had anticipated. Tsunade's expression remained admirably neutral as she absorbed the night's developments, though the white-knuckled grip on her sake cup betrayed her tension. Early morning light streamed through the Hokage office windows as Naruto, Shikamaru, and Yugito delivered their report. Carefully edited to omit certain aspects of Naruto's divine manifestation. Akatsuki conducting rituals on our border is concerning enough, she finally said, setting down her untouched drink. Their apparent knowledge of your condition suggests intelligence leaks I need to address immediately. Her sharp gaze focused on the black medallion Naruto had recovered. And this cult connection adds yet another layer of complication. The original mission parameters need adjustment, Naruto suggested respectfully. What began as research has become time-sensitive intelligence gathering. If his temples contain knowledge the Twilight Cult could weaponize, we need to secure them first. Tsunade nodded, decision already made. Agreed, I'm upgrading this to an A- rank mission with expanded parameters. Locate these temples, secure any artifacts or knowledge related to the Shadow God, and gather intelligence on Twilight Cult activities. She hesitated briefly before adding, and continue developing your abilities, Naruto. Based on this encounter, you may need them sooner than we anticipated. The unspoken question of whether those abilities would ultimately serve Konoha or some our purpose remained delicately unaddressed. Naruto appreciated Tsunade's willingness to navigate this unprecedented situation without forcing unnecessary confrontations. We'll need Jiraiya-sama, he requested directly. Already summoned, Tsunade confirmed. I sent word after our meeting yesterday, call it Hokage's intuition. He should arrive by nightfall. She leaned back, studying the three shinobi before her. An unusual team composition. Shadow strategist, Biju diplomat, awakening deity, and wandering sage. If nothing else, you'll keep our enemies guessing. After finalizing logistical details, Naruto found himself with unexpected free hours before Jiraiya's arrival. Yugito departed to send updates to Kumogakure, while Shikamaru returned to the Nara compound for specialized equipment and clan scrolls potentially relevant to their mission. You should visit the archive beneath the Hokage monument, Kurama suggested as Naruto contemplated how best to use this time. There are ECORDS there from the village founding that might contain relevant information. Hashirama Senju had certain insights about the nature of chakra that approached divine understanding. Naruto followed this advice, using his Jonin clearance to access the rarely visited repository of Konoha's earliest documents. The archive itself was a natural cave system beneath the monument, expanded and reinforced during village construction. Cool, dry air preserved scrolls and artifacts dating back to the Warring States period and beyond. The section dedicated to village founders contained Hashirama's personal journals, philosophical reflections rarely consulted by modern shinobi more interested in technique scrolls than metaphysical musings. Naruto settled at a simple wooden table, reverently open in journals with bindings fragile from age. Connection between natural energy and what I can only describe as the shadow realm, *1 passage read. When perfectly still in sage mode, I perceive pathways through darkness that shouldn't exist in physical space. Madara dismisses these observations as meditative hallucinations, but I believe they represent something fundamental about chakra's true nature. Hashirama's insights continued across several volumes, describing experiences during deep meditation that aligned remarkably with aspects of Naruto's awakening abilities, particularly regarding connections between natural shadows and interdimensional spaces. Today I encountered something unexpected during meditation, *a later entry revealed. A presence in the shadow realm, ancient, vast, seemingly dormant yet aware. It observed me briefly before withdrawing deeper into darkness. The encounter left me with the unshakable impression that what we call chakra is merely a fragment of something greater, an energy system predating human understanding. He sensed you, Naruto murmured aloud, realization dawning. Even in your dormant state, Hashirama Senju possessed extraordinary sensitivity. Kurama confirmed. His wood release connected him to aspects of nature most humans cannot perceive. In another era, he might have become a disciple of the shadow god rather than founder of a ninja village. The most revealing entry came near the end of Hashirama's life. Dreams have plagued me these past weeks, visions of a figure commanding darkness itself, teaching primitive humans to channel what would eventually become ninjutsu. The shadow techniques of the Nara clan seem pale reflections of these primal arts. Most troubling are glimpses of conflict, the shadow teacher betrayed by disciples who sought divine power for themselves, creating a schism that echoes through generations. I've consulted ancient texts from before the clan wars, finding references to a Kage no Kami, and opposing Tazagare Kyodan, Twilight cult. Most dismiss these as creation myths, but my experiences in the shadow realm suggest otherwise. I've hidden certain artifacts recovered during this research beneath the monument, things too dangerous for ambitious hands yet potentially valuable should ancient conflicts reignite. Naruto straightened, pulse quickening. Artifacts hidden beneath the monument, precisely where he currently sat. Had some unconscious divine instinct guided him to this location. The journal provided no explicit directions, but Naruto found himself rising, allowing intuition to guide his steps deeper into the archive complex. Conventional lighting became sparser as he progressed, but darkness posed no impediment to his enhanced perception. The shadows themselves seemed to guide him, subtly indicating pathways where ordinary vision would perceive only solid stone. Eventually, he reached a section that appeared to be natural cave wall, unremarkable except for the way shadows clung to its surface with unusual density. Placing his palm against the cool stone, Naruto channeled a small amount of his shadow essence rather than conventional chakra. The response was immediate. Ancient seals hidden within the stone structure flared briefly before the wall simply ceased to exist, not crumbling or sliding aside, but phasing out of reality to reveal a chamber beyond. Unlike the methodically organized archive, this space contained items arranged with personal significance rather than catalogued order, Hashirama's private collection of objects too significant or dangerous for public knowledge. Naruto entered reverently, sensing residual natural energy that had preserved this space untouched for decades. Displayed pedestals carved from living wood held various artifacts, ceremonial weapons, ancient scrolls, crystallized chakra formations. But one item dominated the chamber's center, a mask carved from what appeared to be petrified shadow, its surface absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The Shadow God's ceremonial mask, Kurama identified with audible reverence. Worn during the most sacred rituals. I haven't seen this since before the fragmentation. Naruto approached slowly, drawn by recognition that transcended conscious memory. The mask seemed to pulse with subtle energy, responding to his proximity like a loyal companion greeting its long-absent master. Without conscious decision, he reached for it, fingers hovering just above its light-drinking surface. I wondered when you'd find this place, spoke a voice from the chamber entrance. Naruto turned sharply, instinctively gathering shadows for defense before recognizing the white-haired figure leaning casually against the doorframe. Jiraiya-sama, he acknowledged. Tension subsiding. You're early. The Toad Sage shrugged expansively. When the Hokage sends a toad messenger describing divine reincarnation and ancient cults, fashionably late, loses its appeal. He entered the chamber properly, experienced eyes cataloging artifacts with scholarly precision despite his deliberately casual demeanor. So, he continued conversationally, you've awakened as the shadow god of ancient legend. And here I thought the child of prophecy business was complicated enough. The matter-of-fact acceptance was so typical of Jiraiya. Naruto found himself smiling despite the gravity of their situation. You don't seem particularly surprised. When you've traveled as extensively as I have, you encounter enough strange myths to recognize patterns, Jiraiya replied, circling to examine the mask from various angles without touching it. Stories about a primordial entity teaching humans to manipulate shadows exist in cultures across the continent, though details vary. Most historians dismiss them as allegorical explanations for ninjutsu's development. His expression grew more serious. But I've encountered certain groups who take these legends quite literally. Religious sects preserving ancient techniques, collectors seeking artifacts with unusual properties, and occasionally, fanatics hunting anything connected to what they call the divine usurpation, the process of extracting and claiming godly power. The Twilight Cult, Naruto identified. Jiraiya nodded grimly. Among others, though they're the oldest and most persistent. I infiltrated one of their smaller chapters about 15 years ago, before they identified me as a threat. Their core belief centers on humans rightfully claiming divine power rather than merely receiving teachings. They're working with Akatsuki now, Naruto informed him, briefly summarizing the previous night's encounter. The sage absorbed this with deepening concern. An alarming development, though perhaps inevitable. Both organizations seek power through extraction, Biju from Jinchuriki, divine essence from its rightful vessels. He gestured toward the mask. Which brings us to Hashirama's collection. He showed me this place shortly before his death, extracting a promise to protect its secrets from those who would misuse them. How did he acquire these items? Naruto asked, genuinely curious how Konoha's founder had assembled artifacts clearly predating shinobi villages. Hashirama was uniquely attuned to natural energies, Jiraiya explained. During meditation, he sometimes experienced what he called shadow walking, spontaneous journeys to locations marked by ancient power. He believed these artifacts called to him specifically as guardian rather than wielder. The parallels to Naruto's own experiences were striking. Had Hashirama unconsciously tapped into shadow techniques through his profound connection to natural energy? The possibility suggested connections between sage techniques and divine abilities worth exploring. The mask responded to you, Jiraiya observed, returning to their immediate situation. What were you planning to do with it? Naruto considered the question honestly. I'm not entirely sure. Something guided me here, instinct or memory. The mask feels significant. Like it might accelerate the integration process between my human consciousness and divine memories. Potentially helpful for our mission, Jiraiya acknowledged. But also possibly dangerous. Rapid awakening might overwhelm your human identity if not properly managed. His expression reflected genuine concern beneath typical bravado. I've grown rather attached to Naruto Uzumaki over the years. I'd prefer not to lose him completely to some ancient deity, however impressive. The sentiment touched Naruto deeply. Throughout his life, precious few people had valued him simply for himself, not as Jinchuriki, weapon, or prophesied savior. Jiraiya, despite his flaws, had consistently seen and appreciated Naruto as an individual worthy of investment and affection. I'm not being replaced, Naruto assured him with quiet conviction. This is more like remembering parts of myself that were always there but inaccessible. The Shadow God isn't some separate entity taking over, he's what I've always been, beneath layers of reincarnation and sealing. Jiraiya studied him thoughtfully before nodding. Your eyes haven't changed, despite everything else. Still the same stubborn determination I've always seen there. He gestured toward the mask. If you believe this will help rather than harm, I trust your judgment. The sage's endorsement settled Naruto's remaining hesitation. With deliberate movements, he lifted the mask from its pedestal, the material feeling impossibly light despite its solid appearance. Turning it in his hands, he examined intricate patterns etched into its interior, designs resembling constellations rendered in what appeared to be silver inlay. The star map of Shadow Realms, Kurama identified. Navigation markers for pathways between dimensions. Wearing the mask traditionally enhanced perception of these connections. Drawing a steadying breath, Naruto raised the mask to his face. The moment contact occurred, his consciousness expanded dramatically, not overwhelming his identity but enriching it with cascading memories and knowledge. Fragments that had been returning gradually now aligned with crystalline clarity, creating the first shadow clone from his own divine essence, teaching to see. Plus to create pale imitations through chakra manipulation, establishing temples at nexus points where reality thinned, allowing easier access to shadow dimensions. Walking between worlds through pathways of primordial darkness. The gradual corruption of certain disciples, their hunger for divine power leading to forbidden experiments. The final confrontation against the Twilight cult's founders. Their attempt to extract and claim his divine essence for themselves. His decision to fragment consciousness rather than risk such power falling into corrupted hands. Kurama and other Guardian Spirits established to protect natural balance during his absence. The promise of eventual return when balance required restoration. When the memory cascade subsided, Naruto carefully lowered the mask, its purpose fulfilled for now. His expression reflected the profound integration occurring within, human and divine aspects aligning with new harmony. Well, Jiraiya prompted after observing this transformation. Did it help? Yes, Naruto confirmed, voice steady despite the momentous internal shifts. I understand now what we're facing, and where we need to go first. Care to enlighten your new mission leader? The sage inquired with theatrical humility. Naruto smiled at the familiar banter, appreciating how it anchored him amid profound changes. The Valley of Shadows in the Land of Mountains. One of the original temples, the first place where I taught humans to manipulate darkness itself. Interesting choice, Jiraiya mused. That region has featured in my research, archaeologue. Ikal sites older than any recorded civilization, with unusual concentrations of natural energy. Remote, politically neutral territory perfect for our purposes. As they prepared to leave the hidden chamber, Naruto carefully returned the mask to its pedestal. While tempting to bring it along, instinct suggested the artifact had served its immediate purpose, further use would come later, when his man form had fully adjusted to accelerated divine integration. We should join the others, he suggested, sealing the chamber with a gesture that combined shadow essence with conventional chakra. Oh, our departure needs to be expedited given Akatsuki's involvement. Jiraiya nodded agreement, though his observant gaze missed nothing about the subtle but significant changes in Naruto's demeanor, posture, and energy signature. The integration was proceeding faster now, divine confidence and ancient knowledge melding seamlessly with human determination and adaptability. As they walked through progressively better lit corridors toward the archive exit, Naruto felt an unprecedented clarity of purpose. The mission ahead was not merely about personal discovery or village security, but something far more fundamental, preserving the proper relationship between mortal and divine realms against those who would corrupt it for power. The balance begins its restoration, asterisk, Kurama observed with satisfaction. Your awakening accelerates now that you've accepted your dual nature. Outside, afternoon sunlight bathed Konoha in warm golden hues. Rather than diminishing his connection to shadows, Naruto found this illumination simply offered different perspective, revealing how light and darkness existed in necessary harmony rather than opposition. This understanding echoed deeper truth about his own existence. Human and divine aspects complementing rather than competing. Shikamaru waited at the designated meeting point, characteristic boredom masking keen observation as Naruto and Jiraiya approached. Yugito joined moments later, her feline grace drawing appreciative glances from passing civilians unaccustomed to Kumo ninja. Team assembly complete, Naruto noted with satisfaction. We leave at dusk. His gaze turned toward the northern horizon, beyond which ancient temples and shadowed secrets awaited rediscovery. In the space between light and darkness, a god continued his awakening. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Blood and Shadow. Mist rolled across dark waters, transforming familiar geography into something alien and treacherous. The narrow strait separating the land of fire from the land of water had claimed countless lives over centuries, some to natural hazards, others to the infamous Kiri hunter Nin patrolling these waters. Tonight, the 5-person team navigated this boundary with silent precision. Their small vessel barely disturbing the midnight black surface. Naruto stood at the bow, eyes closed as he extended his senses through the omnipresent darkness. Since donning the shadow god's mask 2 days prior, his perception had expanded dramatically, shadows no longer merely absence of light but a distinct medium through which he perceived reality with growing clarity. 6 patrol squads within sensor range, he reported quietly, voice carrying just far enough for his companions to hear. 3 conventional shinobi teams, 2 hunter-nin pairs, and something unusual near the main island. Chakra signatures masked but leaving shadow disturbances. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, impressed despite his familiarity with extraordinary abilities. Conventional sensor. Types can't track chakra-concealed targets. Your perception's improving by the hour. It's not chakra I'm tracking, Naruto clarified, eyes opening to reveal star-flecked darkness that gradually returned to normal blue. Everyone displaces shadows when they move, like ripples in water. Most can't conceal this effect because they don't perceive it exists. Shikamaru, manning the rudder with characteristic efficiency, absorbed this information with analytical interest. Could you teach others to perceive these shadow disturbances? Possibly, Naruto acknowledged after brief consideration. Quote, the Nara clan already possesses foundational sensitivity. With proper training, his voice trailed off as new information filtered through his expanded awareness. Change of plans. Kiri's official delegation is intercepting us directly rather than waiting at the arranged meeting point. 5 chakra signatures approaching from the northeast, one significantly stronger than the others. The diplomatic detour had been unexpected, their journey toward the Valley of Shadows interrupted by urgent communication from Kurigakure. The Mizukage requested immediate consultation regarding shadow-based disturbances affecting their village barrier systems. While potentially delaying their primary mission, the coincidence seemed too significant to ignore. Convenient timing, Yugito commented from her position near the mast. Golden eyes reflecting minimal starlight with feline efficiency. Almost as if someone wanted to ensure we visited Kiri before reaching the ancient temples. Or someone's monitoring our movements and adjusting their strategy accordingly, Jiraiya suggested, his casual demeanor belied by the subtle hand signals he exchanged with Kakashi, the 2 veterans preparing contingencies with wordless efficiency. Kakashi lowered the specialized telescope he'd been using to scan the horizon. Visual confirmation of approaching vessel, bearing northeast as Naruto indicated. His posed eye crinkled slightly, the only visible indication of his smile. And I believe that's the Mizukage herself at the helm. Distinctive hair even at this distance. Moments later, a sleek vessel emerged from the mist, a Kurigakure diplomatic skiff designed for speed and maneuverability rather than comfort or cargo capacity. As it drew alongside their own craft, the 5 occupants became clearly visible in the diffuse moonlight filtering through thinning fog. 4 were standard Kiri Anbu, masks depicting stylized aquatic predators, postures conveying lethal readiness despite the diplomatic context. The 5th figure immediately commanded attention through presence alone, a tall woman with ankle-length auburn hair, striking green eyes, and the distinctive blue robes of the Mizukage office. Konoha and Kumo representatives, she greeted, voice carrying the distinctive lilt of water country aristocracy. I am Mei Terumi, 5th Mizukage of Kurigakure. I appreciate your accommodation of my unusual request. Protocol dictated that Jiraiya, as nominal mission leader and highest-ranking Konoha representative, should respond first. Instead, the Toad Sage subtly deferred to Naruto with an arly imperceptible nod, acknowledgement of authority transcending conventional hierarchies. Mizukage-sama, Naruto acknowledged with appropriate formality. Your message indicated shadow-based anomalies affecting Kurigakure's security systems. We've adjusted our mission parameters to investigate, though time constraints remain significant. Mei's gaze sharpened with interest as she studied Naruto, not merely as Konoha representative but as an individual of unexpected authority. Something in her expression suggested she perceived aspects of his nature beyond ordinary observation. The anomalies began 5 days ago, she confirmed, seamlessly transitioning to substantive discussion. Our barrier systems, which incorporate specialized shadow binding techniques developed during the Second Mizukage's era, began experiencing unprecedented disruptions. Shadows behaving independently of their casters. The timing aligned perfectly with Naruto's awakening, further confirmation that his emerge NCE as the shadow god affected shadow techniques worldwide, not merely those in his immediate vicinity. We should continue this discussion on Kiri soil, Mei suggested, gesturing toward her vessel. My Anbu will escort your craft to the secure diplomatic harbor. I invite 2 representatives to join me for immediate consultation, the others can follow standard protocol. Another subtle negotiatio, beneath diplomatic courtesy, she wanted to separate the group, presumably to assess key individuals more thoroughly. Standard security procedure, though executed with particular focus on Naruto. Acceptable. Naruto agreed after brief consultation with his companions through discreet hand signals. Myself and Jiraiya-sama will accompany you. The others will proceed through conventional channels. Mei smiled, a gesture that transformed her formal demeanor into something more approachable yet no less calculated. Excellent. We have much to discuss, Uzumaki-san, including matters beyond official diplomatic parameters. As they transferred to the Kiri vessel, Naruto sensed multiple layers to this encounter, official diplomatic concerns layered over personal curiosity and something else, a subtle recognition in the Mizukage's chakra that suggested she possessed information about his nature she hadn't yet revealed. She knows something, Kurama observed within his mindscape. Her chakra carries unusual resonance, as if she's encountered Shadow Realm influences before. The Terumi clan has ancient origins, Naruto replied mentally, accessing newly integrated memories. Their Kekkei, Genkei relates to primordial elemental forces. In the earliest era, they served as intermediaries between divine entities and mortal realms. This historical connection explained Mei's apparent sensitivity to his awakening. The question remained whether this represented potential alliance or complication for their broader mission. The journey to Kurigakure's hidden harbor passed in efficient silence, broken only by necessary navigational communications. Mei observed Naruto with undisguised interest throughout, her political acumen apparently balanced by straightforward curiosity about the unusual shinobi in her midst. Upon reaching their destination, a concealed cove accessible only through narrow channels designed to prevent unauthorized access, Naruto's enhanced perception detected sophisticated security measures layered throughout the approach. Most intriguing were shadow-based barrier techniques embedded within the harbor's natural structure, precisely the systems Mei had indicated were experiencing disruptions. Your barrier techniques incorporate elements I wouldn't expect from water country traditions, Naruto observed as they disembarked onto a private dock extending from stone foundations. Shadow binding methods more commonly associated with fire country bloodlines. Mei's expression registered genuine surprise at his perception. You have unusual insight for one so young, Uzumaki-san. Yes, our barrier systems incorporate techniques acquired during the Warring States period, a diplomatic exchange between Terumi ancestors and certain shadow-wielding clans before Iden villages formalized such distinctions. The Naru weren't the only shadow users in that era, Jiraiya contributed, his scholarly knowledge complementing Naruto's more intuitive understanding. Quote, Several minor clans specialized in shadow techniques before consolidation into larger village structures. Precisely, Mei confirmed, leading them along an elevated walkway toward an elegant structure built directly into the cliffside. What concerns us is that techniques stable for generations have suddenly become temperamental. As if the shadows themselves have developed independent will. The description echoed reports from other locations where shadow techniques had been affected by Naruto's awakening. Shadow, once merely a tool to be manipulated, increasingly responded as semi-sentient force reconnecting with its divine origin. Their destination proved to be a private consultation chamber rather than formal diplomatic hall, a space designed for candid discussion rather than ceremonial formalities. Once Anbu guards established security perimeters outside, Mei dismissed her immediate attendants with a gesture that brooked no argument. When the three remained alone, she abandoned diplomatic pretense entirely. "Now we can speak plainly," she stated, pouring ceremonial sake without waiting for assistance. Kage no Kami has awakened after millennia of dormancy, and shadow tech techniques worldwide are responding to their original master. The direct acknowledgement of divine reality, delivered without preamble or equivocation, momentarily startled both Konoha shinobi. Mei's expr. Eshin reflected satisfaction at having disrupted their composure, if only briefly. "You seem remarkably well informed about matters most consider ancient mythology," Jiraiya observed carefully. Axe. Pating offered sake with appropriate ceremony. Mei fixed her attention fully on Naruto, ignoring the sage's deflection. "The Terumi clan has maintained certain historical awareness that others dismissed as superstition. Our bloodline limit connects us to primordial forces that predate ninja villages by thousands of years." Her green eyes reflected genuine intensity beneath political calculation. "We recognize divine awakening when it disturbs techniques founded on divine principles." Naruto considered his response carefully. Mei's directness warranted reciprocal honesty, yet strategic concerns remained paramount. "What exactly do you hope to gain from this knowledge, Mizukage-sama?" "Understanding," she replied immediately. "Preparation. Perhaps alliance." She sipped her sake thoughtfully before continuing. "Kurigakure's history with divine matters is complicated. Previous generations treated power as something to be harvested rather than respected. I've worked to correct this imbalance since taking office. And the shadow disturbances affecting your barriers?" Naruto prompted, steering conversation toward immediate concerns. "Merely symptoms of greater change," Mei acknowledged. "What concerns me more are reports of unusual activity at ancient sites throughout Water Country, locations historically connected to what my ancestors called the shadow paths. Individuals with specialized knowledge-seeking artifacts of specific design. This aligned perfectly with their intelligence regarding Twilight cult activities. These individuals," Naruto inquired carefully, "did they leave any identifying markers? Medallions with distinctive symbols, perhaps?" Mei's expression sharpened with recognition. "Black metal coins bearing a stylized eclipse symbol. You've encountered them already, recently," Naruto confirmed. "They're called the Twilight Cult, an organization dedicated to harvesting divine power through forbidden techniques. Their recent activities saint preparation for something significant. Then our interests align more directly than anticipated," Mei concluded, practical diplomacy reasserting itself. "I propose expanded cooperation. You assist with stabilizing our compromised security systems, something only the Shadow God himself could accomplish efficiently, and I provide intelligence regarding cult activities within Water Country territories." The offer made strategic sense. Though Naruto detected additional motivations beneath Mei's pragmatic proposal, her chakra fluctuated subtly when directly addressing him, indicating personal interest beyond political calculation. Whether this represented potential recruitment, alliance building, or something more complex remained unclear. "She's attracted to power," Kurama observed with amusement. "A common trait among leaders. But there's genuine concern for her people beneath the political maneuvering. We accept your proposal with certain conditions," Naruto decided after brief consultation with Jiraiya through subtle signals. "I'll examine and stabilize your security systems in exchange for complete access to your intelligence regarding cult activities. Additionally, we require expedited passage through Water Country to continue our primary mission once this matter concludes." "Acceptable," Mei agreed without hesitation, clearly having anticipated these terms. All Aura, NGE immediate access to our barrier control systems and provide personal escort to affected sites. The sooner we resolve these security vulnerabilities, the better for all concerned. The negotiations concluded with ceremonial finality. Both parties satisfied with arrangements that served their respective interests while preserving necessary autonomy. As they prepared to rejoin their companions at Kurigaku's main diplomatic compound, Mei addressed Naruto with unexpected informality. "The shadow suits you, Uzumaki-san," she observed, the comment carrying layers of meaning beyond casual observation. "Unlike those who merely borrow power, you wear it as naturally as your own skin." The insight demonstrated perception beyond ordinary diplomatic awareness. Mei Terumi clearly possessed Al's sensitivity to metaphysical matters alongside her political acumen. Whether this represented asset or complication remained to be determined as their unexpected cooperation unfolded. Dawn Illumina, Ted Kurigaku's distinctive architecture, organic structures built in harmony with the island's natural topography rather than imposing human geometry upon the landscape. Perpetual mist softened edges, and created an atmosphere of ethereal impermanence despite the village's ancient foundations. Naruto stood atop the central barrier control tower, hands extended toward massive seal arrays embedded within the structure's heart. Unlike Konoha's primarily physical defenses, Kurigaku employed sophisticated chakra networks that utilized the omnipresent mist as sensory medium, the entire village perpetually wrapped in a living detection system that distinguished friend from foe through countless subtle parameters. Shadow components provided critical stability to this complex system, darkness ANC. Pouring light-based sensory techniques in perfect equilibrium. At least, that had been the design until Naruto's awakening disturbed this balance by awakening semi-sentience in shadow elements throughout the network. "The fundamental issue isn't technical but philosophical," he explained to the assembled specialists, Senior Kiri Shinobi responsible for barrier maintenance. "Your system treats Shadow W as passive medium when it's actually responsive entity. The techniques need recalibration to request cooperation rather than compel service." The concept clearly challenged conventional understanding among even these specialists. One senior technician, an elderly woman with intricate seal tattoos covering visible skin, voiced the collective confusion. "With respect, Uzumaki-san, shadows are non-sentient byproducts of light interaction with physical objects. How can one request cooperation from something that lacks consciousness?" The question reflected fundamental misconceptions about Dao's true nature, understandable given millennia of divine absence from human awareness. Naruto considered how best to bridge this comprehension gap without unnecessarily exposing metaphysical reality's better left to gradual reintroduction. "Consider the relationship between humans and natural environments," he suggested, searching for accessible analogy. Early civilizations viewed nature as passive resource to be exploited. More sophisticated understanding recognizes natural systems as complex, responsive entities requiring cooperative approaches for sustainable interaction. He gestured toward the shadow binding arrays, elegant constructs that would have represented pinnacle achievement for conventional practitioners. "Your shadow techniques evolved during the exploitation era. They functioned through dominance rather than partnership, which worked adequately until recent changes in Shadow's fundamental nature." "Changes you somehow precipitated," observed the elderly technician with unexpected directness. Naruto nodded, acknowledging without elaborating. "The solution requires recalibrating your intent throughout the system, shifting from command to invitation. I can demonstrate the necessary adjustments if you're willing to implement them." After brief consultation among themselves, the specialists agreed to his proposal, professional curiosity overriding conventional skepticism. For the next several hours, Naruto guided them through systematic modifications to sealing arrays and chakra flow patterns, transforming techniques originally designed for unilateral control into frameworks for cooperative partnership with shadow entities. The process required delicate balance between technical instruction and conceptual reframing. Too much metaphysical explanation would undermine practical implementation. Too little would prevent necessary paradigm shifts in operator approach. Throughout this process, Naruto drew upon both his awakening divine knowledge and practica. Experience as shinobi, the integration between these aspects of his nature becoming increasingly seamless. By midday, transformations throughout the barrier network had progressed sufficiently for preliminary testing. Naruto stood at the control nexus while operators initiated sequential activation of modified systems. The results exceeded even optimistic projections, shadow elements responding with enthusiastic cooperation that enhanced system efficiency beyond original specifications. Remarkable, murmured the elderly technician, monitoring diagnostic outputs with increasing amazement. Detection sensitivity improved 30%, response latency reduced by half, and chakra consumption decreased significantly. These aren't mere repairs but comprehensive upgrades. Mei, who had observed portions of this process throughout the morning, approached with undisguised appreciation. Kurigakure is in your debt, Uzumaki-san. Our technical division estimates these improvements would have required years of research to develop independently, if they managed it at all. Her gratitude appeared genuine despite the political calculation never entirely absent from cage-level interactions. More interesting was the subtle shift in how she regarded Naruto, initial curiosity about his unusual abilities evolving into something approaching genuine respect for demonstrated expertise. The systems should remain stable indefinitely, Naruto explained, completing final adjustments to central arrays. Though I recommend gradual implementation of similar philosophical adjustments to other shadow techniques throughout your village. The fundamental shift in shadow's nature isn't temporary or localized. I'll establish a dedicated research division for this purpose, Mei decided, practical leadership asserting itself. Perhaps with occasional consultation from Konoha specialists. The diplomatic phrasing thinly veiled specific interest in continued access to Naruto's unique insights. Technical matters satisfactorily addressed, attention shifted to the intelligence exchange promised in their agreement. Mei personally escorted Naruto and his team to Kurigakure's secure NCE division, a facility burrowed into the volcanic rock forming the island's foundation rather than housed in more visible administrative buildings. Our surveillance network has documented unusual activity at 7 locations throughout Water Country, she explained as they entered a briefing room lined with detailed topographical maps. All ancient sites predating Hidden Village establishment, traditionally associated with shadow manipulation in local folklore. Shikamaru studied the marked locations with analytical precision. They form a geometric pattern, he observed, tracing connections between sites. A heptagram centered on this uninhabited island. He indicated a small landmass southwest of the main island. Precisely, Mei confirmed, clearly impressed by his immediate recognition. The pattern emerged only when we compiled reports from multiple sources. Individual incursions appeared random until viewed collectively. Yugito approached the central map, feline eyes narrowing as she examined the configuration. This resembles ritual preparation, she noted, drawing on knowledge gained through her Biju connection. Establishing anchors at specific points before attempting major working at the center. She's correct, Kurama confirmed within Naruto's mindscape. This configuration matches ancient templates for dimensional interference, specifically, forced access. To shadow realms normally traversable only by entities with divine authority. The implications were disturbing on multiple levels. Attempting unauthorized access to shadow realms risked destabilizing boundaries between dimensions, potentially causing catastrophic bleed-through between realities never meant to intersect. When did this activity begin? Kakashi inquired, his experienced assessment focusing on tactical timelines. First incursions approximately 3 months ago, Mei answered. Significant escalation within the past week, coinciding with reported disturbances throughout the shadow network. This timeline suggested the Twilight cult had been preparing well before Naruto's awakening, perhaps monitoring for signs of divine resurgence while establishing necessary infrastructure. For whatever they planned once confirmation arrived. What about the central island? Jiraiya asked, attention focused on the heptagram's nexus point. Any reported activity there? None yet confirmed, Mei replied. Though our surveillance capabilities in that area are limited. The island has unusual properties that interfere with conventional detection techniques, natural electromagnetic disturbances, unpredictable weather patterns, and reported equipment malfunctions affecting even specialized sensory devices. A shadow nexus point, Naruto realized, accessing newly integrated knowledge. places where boundaries between dimensions naturally thin. I established temples at such locations specifically to regulate passage between realms. We need to investigate that island immediately, he decided. Strategic priorities crystallizing with this new intelligence. If the Twilight Cult has established anchors at these 7 points, the central location represents their ultimate OBJ. Active, likely a site of significant power they intend to access through their preparations. May nodded agreement. I've already prepared transportation to that location. A specialized vessel design. D for approaching areas with unusual electromagnetic properties. We can depart within the hour if that suits your timeline. The inclusive, we, didn't pass unnoticed. You intend to accompany us personally? Jiraiya questioned. Diplomatic experience recognizing unusual protocol deviation. This situation potentially threatens Kurigaku's security directly, May responded smoothly. As Mizukage, I have responsibility to assess such threats firsthand when circumstances permit. Additionally, she hesitated briefly, unusual candor disrupting political calculation. The Terumi clan has historical connection to such sites. My presence may prove useful beyond official capacity. The explanation satisfied diplomatic requirements while acknowledging deeper motivations. Naruto recognized the OPP opportunity this represented. May's expertise regarding local sites potentially valuable, while her presence would cement cooperative relations between villages normally maintaining cautious distance. We welcome your participation, he confirmed, decision made without requiring consultation with teammates. This subtle assertion of authority, natural rather than performative, reflected his increasingly integrated divine aspect. Leadership emerged from inherent nature rather than assigned position. Preparations proceeded with efficient urgency. Kurigaku's resources mobilized with impressive responsiveness to their cage's directives. By early afternoon, the expanded team departed from Kiri's military harbor aboard the promised specialized vessel, a streamlined craft incorporating unique shield. Ding against electromagnetic disturbances alongside conventional transportation capabilities. As mainland receded behind them, conversation among team members explored implications of their discovery. While establishing parameters for the upcoming investigation. Shikamaru and Kakashi focused on tactical approaches to unknown territory, while Jiraiya consulted with Kiri intelligence specialists guarding historical records of the destination island. Naruto found himself joined by both Yugito and Mei at the vessel's forward observation platform, an unexpected pairing of powerful women with distinctive personalities yet surprisingly compatible analytical approaches. Your Biju seems unusually cooperative, May observed to Yugito after preliminary conversation established rapport. Most Enchiriki describe constant struggle for dominance rather than harmonious partnership. Yugito's expression remained carefully neutral, though her body language conveyed appreciation for direct address rather than diplomatic evasion. Matabi and I reached understanding years ago. Her goals align sufficiently with mine to make cooperation mutually beneficial. And recent developments have affected this arrangement. May inquired, gaze shifting briefly toward Naruto with implicit acknowledgement of his role in these changes. Clarified rather than disrupted, Yugito replied after brief consideration. Certain aspects of her nature make more sense within historical context we previously lacked. Her cat-like eyes reflected complex emotions beneath practiced composure. Learning your part Er's true purpose changes perspective on shared circumstances. The conversation represented more than casual exchange, 3 individuals navigating complex transitions in their understanding of reality. While maintaining professional focus on immediate challenges. Beneath diplomatic courtesy and tactical planning, fundamental worldviews shifted as ancient truths resurfaced through modern consciousness. The island approaches, announced the vessel's captain, interrupting these reflections. Entering electromagnetic disturbance zone in approximately 5 minutes. All sensitive equipment should be secured according to protocol. The announcement refocused attention on their immediate objective. As predicted, conventional navigational systems began experiencing interference as they entered the disturbance zone surrounding their destination. What appeared ordinary from distance revealed increasingly unusual properties as they approached, peculiar atmospheric conditions creating visual distortions around the landmass. While localized weather patterns generated unnatural fog banks that appeared and dissipated with no relation to prevailing conditions. The veil thins here, Kurama observed within Naruto's mindscape. Natural boundary between physical realm and shadow dimensions becomes permeable at such locations. Hence the equipment disruptions, technology designed for single realm operation encounters multi-dimensional interference. This explanation aligned with Naruto's divine memories, recollections of establishing temples at precisely such locations to facilitate control. Interaction between realms normally separated by metaphysical boundaries. Whether this particular site contained one of his original temples remained unknown, though probability seemed high given the Twilight cult's evident interest. The vessel navigated final approach with decreasing reliance on instrumentation, captain and crew reverting to traditional seamanship as technology proved increasingly unreliable. They anchored offshore rather than attempting direct landing, the island's rocky perimeter offering few safe harbors while unusual current patterns created navigational hazards better avoided entirely. Wheel approach by secondary craft, May decided, directing crew to prepare specialized landing boats designed for shallow water navigation. Sensor team reports increasing anomaly. Closer to shore, better to proceed with minimal equipment and maximum flexibility. The strategy made tactical sense given circumstances. Two teams formed naturally, Naruto, Yugito and Mei comprising the first, with Jiraiya, Kakashi and Shikamaru forming the second. This division balanced capabilities while maintaining command structure across both units. As their landing craft approached shore, Naruto extended his senses through surrounding shadows, seeking information conventional methods couldn't provide in this interference-laden environment. What he discovered confirmed suspicions while raising new concerns. The island's shadow network has been recently disturbed, he reported to his companions. Systematic disruptions consistent with probing techniques, someone testing boundaries rather than crossing them. Professional work, not random exploration. Timeline, May inquired, practical leadership focusing on actionable intelligence. Within past 48 hours, Naruto estimated. Interpreting subtle patterns in shadow displacement. Methodical coverage suggesting search pattern rather than targeted approach. They were looking for something specific without knowing precise location. And did they find it? Yugito asked the essential question, her Biju enhanced senses alert for danger as they approached landing zone. Naruto considered this carefully, extending perception deeper into the island's shadow network. Unclear. The search pattern completed but subsequent activities aren't recorded in shadow displacement. Either they departed after reconnaissance or switched to methods that don't interact with shadow networks. This ambiguity complicated tactical planning. As landing craft scraped against volcanic sand, both teams maintained heightened alert, prep. ARED for potential hostilities while hoping for uncontested exploration. The island itself presented immediate impressions of ancient significance, natural formations too precisely arranged for coincidence. Weathered stone structures barely distinguishable from surrounding landscape except to trained observers. Spread out but maintained communication range, Naruto directed once both teams assembled on shore. We're looking for anything resembling temple structures, unusual shadow concentrations, or evidence of recent activity. Priority remains intelligence gathering rather than engagement if hostiles are encountered. The teams separated as planned, establishing systematic search patterns across the relatively small island, approximately 3 kilometers at its widest point. Naruto led his group toward the island's central elevation, where topographical maps indicated unusual plateau formation inconsistent with typical volcanic development patterns. As they ascended through increasingly dense vegetation, evidence of human activity emerged, subtle trail markers visible only to experienced observers, strategic branch removals creating unnatural sight lines, occasional impression of equipment temporarily placed against distinctive trees. Professional work, May noted, fingers tracing nearly invisible scoring on volcanic rock face. Not standard shinobi technique, something more specialized. Almost archaeological in methodology. The Twilight cult recruits extensively among scholarly communities, Yugito contributed, drawing on information shared during mission preparation. Particularly those specializing in ancient civilizations and forgotten techniques. Knowledge serves their harvesting agenda. This pattern continued as they approached the central plateau, evidence of methodical exploration rather than hasty intrusion. Whoever had conducted reconnaissance possessed both technical expertise and disciplined approach to unknown territory. The absence of obvious Cement or resource extraction suggested scholarly interest rather than conventional looting, though ulterior motives remained presumed given known cult objectives. The plateau itself, once reached, immediately justified investigative interest. Unlike natural volcanic formations, this expansive flat area had been meticulously engineered, massive stone blocks fitted with precision challenging modern construction techniques. Geometric patterns embedded within overall design suggesting purpose beyond mere architecture. This is it, Naruto confirmed, divine recognition resonating through his consciousness. One of the original temples, constructed during earliest human civilization as interface point between realms. The confirmation generated momentary silence as his companions absorbed implications. They stood upon construction predating hidden villages by millennia, physical evidence of civilization advancing beyond conventional historical understanding. What function did this serve originally? May inquired, scholarly curiosity temporarily superseding tactical considerations. Naruto accessed increasingly integrated divine memories while examining specific architectural elements. Education primarily, a place where selected disciples learned to perceive and navigate shadow realms under controlled conditions. Early shadow techniques developed here before spreading to mainland populations. As they explored the plateau more thoroughly, distinctive sections emerged from overall design: training areas, meditation spaces, ceremonial platforms where significant rituals would have been conducted. Most impressive was central circular depression approximately 20 meters in diameter, a perfectly formed bowl cut from living stone with intricate spiral patterns flowing from outer perimeter toward central point. The nexus, Naruto identified, ancient knowledge surfacing unbidden. Primary interface between physical world and shadow realms. When properly activated, this OWS controlled passage between dimensions otherwise separated by metaphysical boundaries. Precisely what the Twilight cult would target, Yugito observed, connecting tactical dots efficiently. The anchor points established at outer locations presumably prepare for some activation sequence centered here. Naruto nodded agreement while examining the nexus more closely. Despite millennia of exposure to elements, its essential structure remained intact, testament to construction techniques exceeding modern capabilities. More concerning were recent modifications barely visible beneath surface Athena, subtle alterations to original patterns that would change function in potentially dangerous ways. Someone has modified the original configuration, he reported, tracing altered pathways with growing concern. Recently and with considerable expertise. The changes appear designed to reverse normal flow, pulling essence from shadow realms into physical world rather than facilitating controlled passage between them. Consistent with harvesting objectives, May noted grimly, professional assessment confirming theoretical understanding. Rather than requesting access, they're attempting for CED extraction of whatever they believe valuable within shadow dimensions. The discovery elevated threat assessment significantly. While mere passage between realms represented manageable risk when properly conducted, forced extraction threatened fundamental boundaries between dimensions, potentially releasing entities or energies never meant to enter physical reality. We need to document these modifications thoroughly, Naruto decided, strategic priorities crystallizing. Then neutralize them before activation becomes possible. If the cult has established necessary anchor points at the 7 locations Kurigakure identified, they could potentially activate this site remotely. Implementation began immediately, Yugito establishing perimeter security while May applied specialized documentation techniques developed by Kurigukure's archaeological division. Naruto focused on deeper assessment of modifications, using divine perception to identify crucial alteration points requiring neutralization. These changes display uncomfortable familiarity with original design principles, Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. Not mere imitation but genuine understanding of interdimensional mechanics. Someone with access to authentic knowledge directed this work, meaning either very old cult leadership or access to original documentation I created, Naruto concluded grimly. Neither option particularly reassuring. The assessment process revealed increasingly sophisticated modifications beneath superficial alterations, changes requiring intimate knowledge of Shadow Realm YSICS alongside conventional engineering expertise. Whoever directed these adjustments understood fundamental principles underlying original design rather than merely copying visible patterns. As documentation neared completion, communication from the second team interrupted their methodical process. Kakashi's voice through specialized radio equipment modified to function within electromagnetic disturbance zone. "We've located what appears to be recent encampment on southern perimeter," he reported, transmission quality degraded but comprehensible. "Abandoned within past 24 hours based on evidence. Significant equipment left behind suggests hasty departure rather than planned withdrawal. Any indication of their destination or reason for departure?" Naruto inquired, tactical as assessment incorporating this new information. "Nothing definitive," Kakashi responded. Though Jiraiya identified specialized transportation seals suggesting possible rapid extraction capabilities. EY may have maintained remote monitoring system alerting them to our approach. This scenario aligned with observed professionalism in cult operations. "Continue documenting their encampment," Naruto directed. "We're completing assessment of central temple structure where significant modifications have been identified. Rendezvous at landing site in 30 minutes to compare findings." With adjusted timeline established, Naruto accelerated final documentation while developing neutralization strategy for identified modifications. The changes, while sophisticated, remained physical alterations to material structure, susceptible to conventional counteraction once properly understood. "We have options," he explained to his companions once assessment completed. "Permanent reversal would require extensive reconstruction better addressed through specialized team with appropriate equipment. However, temporary neutralization can be achieved through targeted disruption of key junction points in the modified design. Preventing immediate activation while allowing for proper restoration later, may summarized, grasping essential strategy. Preferable to destructive approaches that might damage original structure permanently. Implementation proceeded with careful precision, Naruto applying minimally invasive adjustments to critical nodes within the modified system while preserving overall structural integrity. The process required balance between thoroughness and restraint, ensuring effective neutralization without unnecessary damage to historically significant architecture. With primary objective achieved and rendezvous time approaching, the team prepared to withdraw from Central Plateau. Their departure path followed different route than ascent, tactical precaution against potential observation or ambush, when Naruto's enhanced perception detected anomalous shadow movement at plateau perimeter. "Hold," he commanded quietly, stance shifting to combat readiness without obvious transition. "We're being observed." Northeastern quadrant, using sophisticated shadow concealment technique. Both companions responded with immediate professionalism, Yugito extending Biju enhance senses toward indicated direction while Mei activated protective measures with subtle hand movements disguised as ordinary gestures. Neither betrayed awareness through obvious visual focus or changed movement patterns. Single observer, Yugito confirmed through nearly imperceptible subvocalization. Unusual chakra signature, not conventionally human but not Biju either. Something different. This assessment aligned with Naruto's shadow-based detection while adding concerning dimension. The observer wasn't simply hiding physical presence but maintaining partial existence in shadow realm itself. Technique requiring either divine authority or dangerous shortcut methods consistent with Twilight cult practices. A shadow walker, Kurama identified with evident concern. Human using forbidden techniques to exist partially in shadow dimensions. Dangerous and unstable approach to cross-realm existence. Strategic options formed rapidly in Naruto's assessment. Engage directly, attempt capture. Allow observation while extracting useful counterintelligence, or withdraw while maintaining apparent ignorance of observation. Each carried distinct advantages and risks within overall mission parameters. Decision coalesced with characteristically efficient clarity. Maintain current activity patterns, he instructed through specialized hand signals concealed within ordinary movements. We'll proceed toward rendezvous while I prepare shadow binding technique. On my signal, Yugito creates distraction while Mei establishes containment perimeter. The plan acknowledged reality that our observer likely possessed specialized extraction techniques similar to those identified at abandoned encampment. Direct confrontation risked premature withdrawal without useful intelligence gain, while apparent ignorance might encourage continued observation yielding actionable information. Implementation proceeded with practiced coordination despite this being their first joint operation. E-Team continued documentation activities while gradually shifting position to optimize planned countermeasures. Naruto systematically expanded Shadow Network around Observer's location, not attempting direct binding yet but establishing necessary infrastructure for rapid implementation when opportunity presented. The decisive moment came when their movement pattern brought all three team members into optimal position relative to observer location. Naruto's nearly imperceptible nod triggered coordinated action, Yugito generating controlled chakra flare mimicking equipment malfunction while Mei established mist barrier preventing physical escape through conventional means. Simultaneously, Naruto activated prepared shadow binding, not conventional technique but divine command structure that de-dressed both physical and interdimensional aspects of target's concealment method. The effect manifested immediately as shadows throughout northeastern quadrant solidified around previously invisible observer, revealing figure partially materialized in physical realm. Impressive response time, commented the revealed observer, a tall, slender individual whose features seemed oddly fluid, as if no chi fully committed to specific appearance. Their voice carried unusual resonance suggesting partial existence in multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Most wouldn't have detected my presence at all, let alone countered specialized concealment so efficiently. Despite successful binding, Naruto maintained cautious combat readiness, the individual's unusual nature suggesting capabilities beyond conventional threat assessment. You have unusually intimate knowledge of temple architecture for casual explorer, he observed neutrally, providing opportunity for explanation without direct accusation. As do you, the figure countered smoothly, seemingly unconcerned by their captured state. Though your understanding comes from rather different perspective than mine. Their gaze, eyes shifted between ordinary human appearance and disconcerting void-like darkness, focused specifically on Naruto rather than his companions. The prodigal god returns to abandoned temples while shadows worldwide respond to their original master. Fascinating development after such extended absence. The direct acknowledgement of divine nature, delivered with scholarly interest rather than religious reverence or hostile intent, suggested complexity beyond simple cult operative. This impression strengthened as Naruto's enhanced perception detected unusual chakra configuration within the captive, Shadow Essen. CE integrated with human energy through method fundamentally different from crude techniques identified in cult activities. You're not Twilight Cult, Naruto assessed, revising initial assumptions based on new evidence. Their approach to shadow integration lacks the stability your system displays. The figure's expression shifted to something approximating genuine smile, the gesture oddly compelling despite physical features remaining disconcertingly mutable. Perceptive. No, I represent different interest entirely. You might consider as scholarly observers of transition points between divine and mortal realms. Convenient timing for scholarly observation, Yugito noted dryly, maintaining combat readiness despite conversational direction. Coinciding precisely with Twilight Cult activities at this location. Hardly coincidental, the figure corrected. We monitor their activities closely, particularly when they target sensitive locations like this temple complex. Their recent modifications raised significant concern among those who understand potential consequences of interdimensional boundary disruption. This explanation aligned with evidence they'd gathered while introducing new complexity to overall situation assessment. If multiple organizations monitored divine boundary conditions independently of conventional hidden village intelligence networks, strategic landscape contained additional dimensions requiring integration into mission planning. You have us at disadvantage, May observed with diplomatic precision. Your knowledge of our identities and objectives seems comprehensive while we lack even basic introduction. The observation elicited another fluid smile from their captive. A reasonable point, Mizukage-sama. You may call me Tsukimi. I represent organization called Equinox, dedicated to maintaining balance between realms without harvesting or exploitation objectives that drive our more aggressive counterparts. Convenient claim without verification, Naruto noted. Maintaining binding technique while evaluating provided information, particularly when discovered using concealment methods similar to those employed by group you claim to oppose. Similar techniques, different philosophical foundation, Tsukimi countered reasonably. Shadow walking developed originally as communication method between realms, not exploitation technique. The Twilight cult corrupted this approach as they did many original teachings. The explanation carried ring of authenticity when evaluated against Naruto's awakening divine memories, recollections of establishing controlled methods for disciples to experience Shadow Realm characteristics without fully entering potentially dangerous interdimensional spaces. There's truth in their explanation, Kurama confirmed cautiously. Though insufficient evidence to verify organizational claims, individual signature shows genuine Shadow Realm integration rather than forced exploitation, but this alone doesn't confirm stated objectives. Strategic assessment suggested potential value in limited engagement while maintaining appropriate security precautions. If Equinox truly opposes Twilight cult objectives, information sharing serves mutual interests, Naruto observed, slightly relaxing binding constraints while maintaining essential security parameters. Particularly regarding modifications we've identified at this location. Tsukimi nodded appreciation for this measured response. Precisely our assessment as well. The modifications you've temporarily neutralized represent significant escalation in cult methodology, transitioning from metaphysical theory to practical implementation with potentially catastrophic consequences if fully activated. Explain these consequences from your perspective, Naruto directed. Testing provided information against his own understanding while gathering potentially valuable intelligence. The modified configuration creates unidirectional extraction. Pathway between shadow realms and physical reality, Tsukimi explained, technical precision suggesting genuine expertise. Rather than controlled passage respecting interdimensional boundaries, it sentially punctures reality barrier to forcibly extract shadow essence into physical containers. Beyond obvious metaphysical violations, this approach risks cascading dimensional instability affecting regions far beyond immediate extraction point. This assessment aligned precisely with concerns Naruto had identified through divine perception, confirmation suggesting legitimate technical understanding rather than manipulative misinformation. More interesting was accurate identification of secondary consequences extending beyond immediate extraction effects. You've studied original temple design principles extensively, Naruto observed, statement rather than question based on demonstrated knowledge. My organization preserves original teachings from first shadow disciples, Tsukimi confirmed. Though filtered through human understanding rather than divine perspective, we maintain reasonably accurate technical knowledge alongside philosophical foundation emphasizing cooperative relationship with shadow realm rather than exploitation. This claim represented potentially significant development, existence of organization preserving legitimate shadow teachings through millennia of divine absence would constitute valuable ally against Twilight cult activities if verified. However, caution remained appropriate given limited verification options within current operational parameters. What exactly does Equinox want from this interaction? May inquired. Diplomatic experience focusing on practical objectives rather than philosophical alignment alone. Information exchange initially, Tsukimi replied without hesitation. We've tracked Twilight cult activities across multiple regions, compiling intelligence regarding operational patterns and leadership structure. This combined with your direct observations of temple modifications provides more comprehensive assessment than either group possesses independently. The proposal made strategic sense while offering appropriate entry-level cooperation without excessive commitment or security exposure. After brief consultation through subtle signals with his companions, Naruto made decision aligned with mission objectives. Limited information exchange accepted, he confirmed, further relaxing binding constraints while maintaining essential security precautions. Beginning with your assessment of why Twilight cult abandoned Ned operations here shortly before our arrival. Tsukimi's expression suggested genuine willingness to share intelligence, either authentic cooperation or exceptionally skilled performance. They CTED energy signature consistent with divine awakening approaching island location. Given their current preparatory phase rather than implementation readiness, strategic withdrawal preserved future operational options while avoiding premature confrontation with entity they're not yet equipped to contain. This assessment aligned with tactical reasoning Shikamaru had outlined during mission planning. Cult objectives likely included careful preparation before direct engagement with awakened divine entity. Their withdrawal represented tactical patience rather than abandonment of strategic objectives. And the 7 anchor points established around water country. Yugito prompted, focusing on immediate tactical concerns. Preliminary framework for major extraction operation, Tsukimi confirmed. Traditional heptagram configuration establishes resonance pattern amplifying central extraction point effectiveness. Current evidence suggests test implementation rather than full activation, Lear. Ning experience building toward larger operation elsewhere. This characterization as test implementation carried concerning implications, suggesting water country activities represented preparation for more significant operation targeted elsewhere. This aligned with intelligence fragments indicating coordinated cult activities across multiple regions rather than isolated operations. Where is their primary target? Naruto asked directly, divine authority unconsciously manifesting in tone that compelled truthful response despite absence of formal genjutsu. Tsukimi's expression registered momentary surprise at the command's effectiveness before responding with evident sincerity. The Valley of Shadows in Land of Mountains, location of your first and most powerful temple. Their primary objective requires access to original shadow pathways only accessible at that location. The answer confirmed Naruto's worst suspicions while validating their original mission targeting that precise location. The Twilight Cult's ultimate objective centered on the very site they had been traveling toward before Kurigakure's diplomatic intervention, suggesting possible intentional delay rather than coincidental timing. This intelligence exchange has proven mutually beneficial, Naruto acknowledged, maintaining diplomatic courtesy while processing strategic implications. How can future communication be established if circumstances warrant? Tsukimi produced small object from within shadow-infused clothing, medallion superficially resembling Twilight Cult identifier but bearing distinctly different symbolic pattern. This contains communication seal keyed to Equinox Response Network. Activation requires minimal shadow essence application rather than conventional chakra. The offered communication method suggested reasonable security protocols while providing tactical option worth preserving despite remaining verification concerns. Naruto accepted the medallion with appropriate sensory examination confirming absence of tracking or surveillance functions beyond stated communication capability. Our immediate objectives appear temporarily aligned, he acknowledged, formal cognition of limited cooperation without suggesting deeper alliance. Though comprehensive verification of respective claims remains pending future interaction. Tsukimi accepted these terms with apparent understanding of cautious approach. Reasonable position given circumstances. Equinox has existed in shadows, literally and figuratively, for centuries specifically to prevent Twilight Cult acquisition of divine power. The Shadow God's return potentially changes fundamental balance in this conflict, though final outcomes remain undetermined. With essential information exchange completed and rendezvous deadline approaching, tactical considerations dictated conclusion to this unexpected encounter. You're free to depart, Naruto informed their unusual informant, completely dissolving remaining binding constraints. Though monitoring of this location will continue through methods you likely won't detect. Further tampering with temple structure would be unwise. Understood, Tsukimi see knowledge with formal bow incorporating elements of ancient respect gestures described in Naruto's awakening memories. Until circumstances warrant further interaction, Kage no Kami. Their departu re-utilized true shadow walking technique rather than conventional transportation method, physical form dissolving into surrounding darkness before disappearing entirely. The display confirmed advanced capability while demonstrating restraint in not employing this method during initial binding, suggesting either genuine cooperation or sophisticated long-term strategic calculation. Well, May observed once certain of privacy. That was enlightening if not entirely clarifying. Indeed, Yugito agreed, feline eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Either valuable intelligence source or exceptionally sophisticated manipulation attempt. Possibly both simultaneously. Naruto considered these assessments while integrating new information with existing intelligence and divine memories. Their technical knowledge appears authentic based on my understanding of original temple design principles. Whether organizational claims deserve similar credibility remains questionable, though information regarding Twilight Cult activities aligns with evidence we've gathered independently. A potential ally worth cautious engagement, May summarized pragmatically, while maintaining appropriate skepticism regarding broader objectives. This balanced assessment reflected Naruto's own conclusions. With immediate temple security established through neutralization measures and rendezvous deadline approaching, the team departed Central Plateau toward designated meeting point, each processing implications of this unexpected development through individual analytical frameworks. The second team awaited their arrival at landing site, having completed documentation of abandoned encampment with characteristic thoroughness. Shikamaru's expression reflected tactical calculation as they approached, clearly detecting subtle changes in demeanor suggesting significant developments during separation. "You've encountered something unexpected," he observed without preamble once within secure conversation range. "Based on body language and approach pattern adjustments, I'm guessing unforeseen third party rather than direct hostile engagement." The assessment demonstrated why Shikamaru's analytical capabilities remained invaluable despite operating alongside individuals with increasingly extraordinary powers. Naruto provided concise summary of their encounter with Tsukimi and claimed Equinox organization. Neither accepting nor dismissing provided information while emphasizing intelligence regarding cult objectives at Valley of Shadows. "Troublesome," Shikamaru commented after absorbing these developments. "Though potentially useful if even partially legitimate. The communication medallion should be thoroughly examined before use, regardless of surface-level security assessment." "Already planned," Naruto confirmed, appreciating practical caution that balanced his increasingly intuitive decision-making processes. Priority remains accelerated travel to Valley of Shadows given confirmation of cult interest in that location. Temporary neutralization of modifications here provides operational window but doesn't resolve fundamental threat. Jiraiya nodded agreement. Strategic Assessment Inco. RPO rating new intelligence into existing mission framework. Our findings at the encampment support this conclusion. Documentation recovered indicates coordinated operations across multiple regions. Is location represents just one node in broader implementation strategy. They're preparing something significantly larger than regional extraction attempts, Kakashi contributed, experienced assess. Meant cutting directly to essential concern. The abandoned equipment suggests specialized containment technology rather than simple extraction apparatus. They're developing capacity to capture and transport something specific. This observation aligned disturbingly well with Tsukimi's warning about cult objectives at Valley of Shadows, suggesting coordinated preparation for major Operation Targeting location containing Naruto's original and most powerful temple complex. "We should depart immediately," Naruto decided, divine authority naturally asserting itself within team dynamic. "The intel Eigens gathered here confirms our original destination remains primary objective, with increased urgency given evidence of coordinated cult preparation." May nodded acceptance of this assessment while adding practical consideration. "Kurigakure will maintain surveillance of this location and identified anchor points throughout Water Country. I'll establish dedicated response team prepared to neutralize any attempt to reactivate modified temple structure." This commitment represented significant resource allocation from cage-level authority, indication that May fully appreciated metaphysical read represented by cult activities beyond conventional political considerations. More interesting was implicit offering of continued alliance beyond immediate cooperative mission. "Your assistance has proven invaluable," Naruto acknowledged, diplomatic courtesy overlaying genuine appreciation. "The shadow techniques incorporated in your barrier systems reflect legitimate understanding of fundamental principles worth preserving and developing further." The praise, specific and technically informed rather than generic diplomatic platitude, visibly registered with May. Her response balanced professional leadership with personal interest that continued emerging beneath political calculation. "Perhaps when immediate crisis resolves, more extensive knowledge exchange might prove mutually beneficial," she suggested. Formal phrasing barely masking genuine interest in continued interaction. Kurigakure's historical connection to shadow arts deserves proper development under appropriate guidance. The invitation carried both strategic and personal dimensions, alliance building at village level alongside individual interest in Naruto himself, whether motivated by his divine nature or personal qualities becoming increasingly difficult to separate as integration progressed. "I would welcome such exchange when circumstances permit," Naruto confirmed, accepting both implicit offerings with appropriate diplomatic ambiguity while maintaining focus on immediate priorities. Final preparations for departure proceeded with efficient coordination, Kurigakure resources supporting expedited traction while team members integrated gathered intelligence into updated mission parameters. The encounter with Tsukimi introduced new complexity to already challenging strategic landscape, though information regarding cult objectives provided valuable operational focus despite verification concerns. As landing craft returned them toward main vessel anchored offshore, Naruto extended perception through island's shadow network one final time, confirming neutralization measures remained effective while searching for any overlooked elements requiring attention before departure. This expanded awareness detected no immediate concerns beyond lingering resonance patterns indicating centuries of metaphysical significance, the island's role as boundary point between realms leaving permanent imprint on reality fabric itself. The temple served its purpose well for many generations, Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. Even in abandonment, it maintained essential boundary integrity until recent tampering. Your neutralization measures restored basic functionality while preventing exploitation. A temporary solution at best, Naruto acknowledged privately. Proper restoration requires more extensive intervention than current circumstances permit. One challenge among many awaiting attention as your awakening progresses, she noted with pragmatic acceptance of overwhelming responsibilities accompanying divine restoration. Priorities must necessarily focus on immediate threats while building capacity for broader restoration efforts. This balance between immediate crises' response and long-term restoration reflected fundamental challenge within Naruto's awakening, reconciling urgent human timescales with divine perspective encompassing millennia. The integration between these aspects continued developing with each new experience, ancient knowledge informing immediate decisions while human adaptability provided implementation framework. Aboard main vessel, Final Ordination with Kurigakure authorities established ongoing intelligence sharing regarding cult activities within water country while arranging expedited passage toward land of mountains. Mei's personal involvement elevated diplomatic significance of these arrangements beyond conventional inter-village cooperation, the Mizukage herself establishing precedent for collaboration regarding metaphysical threats transcending traditional political boundaries. Our intelligence network will monitor identified anchor points while maintaining communication regarding any activation attempts, she confirmed during final briefing session. Additionally, specialized response teams have been established at each location with neutralization protocols based on methods you demonstrated at the temple site. The comprehensive response reflected both practical leadership and personal investment in addressing identified threats, Mei's unusual awareness of metaphysical realities informing strategic decisions. Beyond conventional security considerations, most significant was implicit acknowledgement of authority transcending traditional village hierarchies, recognition that divine matters required cooperative approaches rather than competitive positioning. As departure preparations concluded, Mei approached Naruto privately during brief transition between briefing session and embarkation, creating airy conversational space outside official protocols. When this crisis stabilizes, she began with uncharacteristic directness, diplomatic calculation temporarily subordinated to personal communication. I would appreciate opportunity for more extensive discussion regarding shadow arts and their proper relationship to human development. The Terumi clan's historical connection to such matters deserves proper context only you can provide. The request balanced professional interest with personal curiosity in manner revealing genuine intellectual engagement with metaphysical matters beyond political utility. More interesting was subtle shift in how she addressed Naruto, not as foreign shinobi or even divine entity, but as uniquely qualified individual transcending conventional categories. I would welcome such discussion. Naruto confirmed sincerely, appreciating intellectual curiosity complementing practical leadership capabilities. The Terumi understanding of elemental boundaries contains insights worth preserving and developing further. This acknowledgement of mutual value rather than unidirectional expertise visibly registered with Mei, respect for distinctive knowledge rather than mere diplomatic courtesy. Her response balanced formal leadership role with emerging personal connection that transcended initial diplomatic calculation. Safe journey and successful mission, he offered as final exchange before their departure. Kurigakure stands ready to provide additional support should circumstances require. You need only send word. The commitment extended beyond conventional alliance parameters, personal investment in addressing metaphysical threats alongside recognition of extraordinary circumstances requiring exceptional response measures. As their vessel depart, Ed Kurigakure waters toward open ocean transit route to distant land of mountains. This unexpected diplomatic and personal connection represented significant development alongside intelligence gathered during their unplanned detour. Stars illuminated northern waters as their vessel maintained steady progress toward land of mountains, specialized Kurigakure craft proving significantly faster than sea. Unconventional transportation options would have provided. The unexpected diplomatic intervention had paradoxically accelerated their journey despite initial delay, providing both enhanced transportation resources and valuable intelligence regarding their ultimate destination. Naruto stood alone on observation deck, starlight reflecting off dark waters while he processed developments from intense days in water country. Beyond tactical considerations and intelligence gathering, the experience had accelerated integration between human and divine aspects of his nature, practical problem solving at K. Irigakure's barrier systems requiring seamless cooperation between conventional shinobi expertise and awakening divine knowledge. The integration progresses naturally through practical application, Kurama observed, her presence warm within their shared consciousness. Technical problems providing ideal context for harmonizing different aspects of your nature. And yet questions multiply faster than answers, Naruto replied. Thoughts turning toward complexities revealed during their mission. The Twilight Cult appears better organized and more technically sophisticated than anticipated. Is Equinox organization introduces additional unknown variables. And my own awakening proceeds without clear understanding of ultimate implications. Such is the nature of divine restoration after millennia of absence. She noted with philosophical acceptance. Complete understanding arrives through process rather than revelation. Even immortal beings learn through experience rather than instantaneous knowledge. This perspective offered useful framework for approaching overwhelming complexity, acceptance that even divine consciousness develops through sequential experience rather than omniscient awareness. The acknowledgement provided space for human qualities like curiosity, discovery and adaptation to complement rather than surrender to awakening divine aspects. Footsteps approaching. A long deck interrupted this internal dialogue, distinctive tread identifying Yugito before visual confirmation became possible in limited illumination. She joined him at observation railing with characteristic quiet grace, respecting contemplative silence for several minutes before initiating conversation. Matabi has been unusually communicative since our temple visit, she observed eventually. Voice pitched for privacy despite apparent solitude. Ancient memories surfacing about her original purpose before the Sage of Six Paths modified Biju nature for his purposes. The information allied, Ned with Naruto's understanding of Biju evolution, guardian spirits originally established to maintain natural balance during divine absence, later transformed into more combative entities through human interference. Yugito's willingness to share this development suggested growing trust alongside professional cooperation. The Biju were never meant to be weapons, Naruto confirmed, divine memories providing context for her experience. They began as specialized guardians for different aspects of natural world, maintaining metaphysical balance during transition period after my consciousness fragmented. Human fear eventually transformed this purpose through successive sealing generations. Yugito considered this perspective thoughtfully, integrating new understanding with personal experience as Jinchuriki. Matabi's fire affinity originally served purification function rather than destruction, she noted, connecting fragmented insights from her Biju's emerging memories. Cleansing hallowed places to prevent corruption rather than combat application. Precisely, Naruto affirmed, appreciating her quick comprehension of complex metaphysical relationships. Each Biju maintained specific aspect of natural balance, Matabi governing transition points where shadow required illumination to prevent stagnation. Complementary forces rather than opposing elements. This framework FFERED alternative perspective on Jinchuriki existence, potential partnership with primordial guardians rather than containment of destructive monsters. Such understanding potentially transformed ion ships between hosts and Biju throughout Shinobi world if properly disseminated and accepted. This changes fundamental assumptions about what it means to be Jinchuriki, Yugito observed, analytic. Mind quickly identifying broader implications. From prison wardens to potential partners in natural balance maintenance. If properly understood and implemented, Naruto agreed, acknowledging significant challenges to paradigm shift within deeply entrenched fear-based approaches to Biju. though generations of conflict and containment have created understandable barriers to such perspective. Their conversation paused as Yugito processed these implications, her experience as successful Jinchuriki providing unique perspective on potential transformation in Biju relationships. When she spoke again, her question addressed different aspects of recent developments. The Mizukage's interest extends beyond diplomatic concerns, she observed neutrally, neither critical nor approving but simply acknowledging reality. Her chakra patterns displayed distinctive fluctuations when addressing you directly, particularly during private exchanges. The observation confirmed Naruto's own Asa's SM. And while demonstrating Yugito's perceptiveness regarding interpersonal dynamics alongside technical capabilities. Her neutral presentation suggested information sharing rather than personal concern, professional observation without emotional complication. She possesses unusual awareness of metaphysical matters alongside political acumen, Naruto acknowledged, matching her neutral tone while recognizing implicit question beneath observation. The Terumi clan maintained certain historical knowledge others dismissed as superstition. And personal interest accompanies professional curiosity, Yugito noted. Completing assessment with characteristic directness. A potentially valuable alliance on multiple levels if properly developed. This pragmatic evaluation reflected Yugito's straightforward approach to complex situations, acknowledging reality without unnecessary complication or emotional distortion. More interesting was implicit acceptance of potential relationships beyond conventional parameters, recognition that divine awakening necessarily transformed ordinary interpersonal frameworks alongside metaphysical understanding. Many aspects of conventional existence require reconsideration as awakening progresses. Naruto observed carefully, addressing underlying question without presuming specific conclusion, including relationships between individuals previously defined by ordinary human parameters. Yugito nodded thoughtfully, apparently satisfied with this philosophical framework rather than requiring specific personal declarations. Matabi suggests traditional man relationship structures poorly accommodate divine mortal interactions. Historical precedent apparently includes various arrangements evolving beyond conventional limitations. This insight suggests Ted Yugito's Biju provided specific historical context regarding divine human relationships, information potentially valuable for navigating unprecedented personal circumstances alongside metaphysical awakening. More significant was Yugito's comfort discussing such matters without apparent discomfort or conventional social constraints. Your perspective on these matters is remarkably pragmatic, Naruto observed. Genuine appreciation for her straightforward approach to complex situations. She smiled faintly, expression barely visible in limited illumination yet conveying authentic amusement. Quote, Jinchuriki existence inherently transcends ordinary parameters. Sharing consciousness with ancient entity provides perspective extending beyond conventional social frameworks. Her golden eyes reflected starlight as she added, besides, Kumogakure cultural traditions accommodate various relationship structures without unnecessary complications prevalent in some regions. This explanation aligned with known cultural differences between hidden villages, Kumo's traditionally pragmatic approach to social organization contrasting with more rigid structures in certain other regions. Combined with Jinchuriki experience transcending ordinary existence, this framework allowed Yugito unusually flexible perspective on developing circumstances. Their conversation might have continued along this intriguing direction had alert from navigation deck not interrupted, signal indicating approach toward intermediate waypoint requiring course adjustment. Both responded to notification with professional focus. Personal matters temporarily subordinated to mission requirements as they rejoined other team members for tactical update. The briefing revealed favorable progress toward land of mountains, and Ed vessel capabilities providing significant time advantage over original travel estimates. Barring unexpected complications, they would reach destination within approximately 36 hours, considerably faster than conventional transportation methods would have allowed. Intelligence from Kurigakure's network confirms continued cult activity in target region, Kakashi reported, reviewing communications with characteristic efficiency. Surveillance indicates multiple small teams operating near Valley of Shadows with specialized equipment consistent with patterns observed at Island Temple site. Troublesome timing, Shikamaru observed, strategic mind instantly calculating implications. They're accelerating operations in response to your awakening rather than abandoning objectives. Suggests confidence in contingency measures despite acknowledged divine presence. This assessment aligned with Tsukimi's warning regarding cult preparations, apparent readiness to proceed despite awareness of Naruto's awakening and approach toward their operational theater. Such confidence suggested either strategic miscalculation or preparation exceeding their current intelligence assessment. We should assume they possess capabilities beyond our current understanding, Naruto concluded, integrating divine perspective with tactical assessment. Their modifications at the Island Temple displayed technical sophistication suggesting access to authentic knowledge sources rather than mere imitation. Which raises question of intelligence sources, Jiraiya contributed, experienced perspective focusing on strategic vulnerabilities. If they accurately tracked your awakening and subsequent movements, information security becomes significant concern. Either conventional surveillance network exceeding our countermeasures or metaphysical monitoring capabilities we cannot easily detect. This consideration introduced additional complexity to already challenging operational landscape. If cult activities included sophisticated intelligence gathering alongside technical preparation, operational security required reassessment before reaching primary objective location. We should implement shadow-based security measures. Naruto decided, divine knowledge providing solution beyond conventional shinobi techniques. I can establish protective framework that operates independently of standard chakra-based concealment methods, specifically addressing metaphysical monitoring techniques. Implementation began immediately, Naruto extending shadow essence throughout vessel structure, while incorporating specialized protection parameters addressing multiple detection methods. Unlike conventional concealment techniques relying on chakra manipulation, this approach utilized divine authority over shadow itself, commanding natural darkness to protect rather than merely obscure their presence. Fascinating approach, Shikamaru observed, analytical mind studying technique with professional interest. You're not disguising our signature but rather instructing ambient shadows to actively misdirect attention away from our location. Conceptually different from conventional concealment. Precisely, Naruto confirmed, appreciating accurate technical assessment despite complexity beyond ordinary shinobi understanding. Rather than opposing detection methods directly, this approach works with fundamental shadow nature to create cooperative protection rather than confrontational concealment. The distinction represented essential philosophical difference between divine shadow arts and human adaptations developed during divine absence, cooperation with natural forces rather than compulsion through chakra dominance. This principle applied across numerous techniques Naruto Inc. reasonably accessed through awakening divine consciousness, abilities operating through fundamentally different relationship with natural forces than conventional shinobi approaches. With enhanced security measures established, team members returned to respective responsibilities, mission preparation continuing while vessel maintained course toward distant objective. Naruto remained briefly on observation deck, confirming proper integration of shadow protection measures throughout ship structure before preparing to join tactical planning session scheduled for later evening. As he turned to depart, unexpected flare of awareness through shadow network interrupted normal movement, sudden intrusion into consciousness resembling mental alarm system activating in response to specific trigger condition. Unlike conventional chakra detection or physical sensory input, this awareness manifested through direct connection to shadow network itself, divine perception detecting disturbance within natural order transcending ordinary detection methods. Someone attempts forbidden passage, Kurama identified immediately, her consciousness equally alert to disturbance. Forced entry into shadow realm Hero artificial means rather than authorized pathways. The violation registered as fundamentally wrong within Naruto's awakening divine nature, equivalent to physical pain for ordinary beings but experienced through metaphysical awareness rather than nervous system. Location remained indistinct through conventional geographic parameters but unmistakable within shadow network topology, somewhere distant yet connected through fundamental shadow relationships transcending physical distance. Without conscious decision, Naruto extended perception through shadow pathways, divine authority provident. Access to interdimensional connections ordinary beings could neither perceive nor traverse. His consciousness traveled vast distances instantaneously, following disturbance signature to its source Heil physical body remained aboard vessel maintaining outward appearance of momentary distraction rather than extraordinary metaphysical journey. The source materialized within divine perception, Loka. Cheon within land of rivers where unauthorized ritual created artificial passage into shadow realm through forbidden blood sacrifice techniques. Unlike controlled pathways established at temple sites, this crude aperture tore reality fabric rather than harmonizing with natural boundary conditions, causing metaphysical damage extending beyond immediate physical location. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.